Broadcasts of the City of Menasha Administration Committee, Board of Public Works, and Common Council meetings are produced by University Studios of the University of Wisconsin-Fox Valley. Menasha residents and interested parties can obtain information about these meetings and meeting agendas from the city website, www.cityofmenasha-wi.gov. Expression of opinions regarding City of Menasha issues or about these broadcasts can be made by contacting the Mayor's Office, 920-967-5117. Contacting their City Alderman. Contact information appears on the website. Completing the electronic feedback form on the website. All public portions of the meetings are recorded in entirety and are not edited for playback.
Good evening. I'd like to call the City of Menasha Common Council meeting to order. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Could we have the roll call, please?
Alderman Collier.
Here.
Alderman Zielinski.
Here.
Alderman Grady.
Here.
Alderman Nichols.
Here.
Alderman Taylor. Alderman Sevenik.
Here.
Alderman Kruger and Benner have been excused.
The first item on the agenda this evening is people from the gallery to be heard on matters pertaining to the agenda. Is there anyone who wishes to speak this evening? Yes. Okay. Seeing no one, we do have,
Dorothy Dworshak, 617 5th Street. I am a retiree from the Public Works facility, and I would like to comment on the proposal of, with the 2018 health insurance coverage premium changes and the HRA that's going to be in effect for next year. Originally, last week, there was no explanation on the paperwork regarding the retirees funding in the HRA, and also there was some cost-saving figures didn't actually account accurately for 100% of the insurance premiums paid by the retiree for their insurance coverage. And I did have a number of conversations with some of the members of the council, and some things have been explained to me differently. And I just want to say that that I believe that some consideration should be taken into effect, since the retirees are paying 100% of their total insurance premium, that paying also for the cost for running the HRA is a little excessive. So, thank you.
thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay. So we do have Director Lenz here this evening from the Library Board. We'll move on to item E. Director Lenz? Oh. We can turn it on.
There we go. I'm going to start out, and then Vicki, I'll transfer over to Vicki, and she can walk through the budget with you. I'd like to make a few comments prior. Thank you for allowing our library to present our budget to you this evening. We have one of the finest libraries in the state. It's a super facility. Our expansion in 2005 really transformed it into a beautiful library, and we're very appreciative of that. And I think that's something our city should be very proud of. In the past, I mentioned that we were the Library of the Year. There's 384 libraries in the state of Wisconsin. We were the Library of the Year in 1998 and in 2008. Or looking at it another way, we were state champions like our football team. And we would like to actively be named the Library of the Year again in the near future, something we're going to pursue. Of the 384 libraries in the state, our library ranks in the top 6%, so that's in the top 25 in terms of circulation, funding, staffing, collection, development. So it's a real point of pride for us. When you compare our our circulation with the neighboring libraries, we're far and away the most participative in terms of people coming and checking out materials and using our library. We have a very talented board of directors, and I thought you may not know all of them, so I thought I would remind you who is on your board. To my right is Bob Goltz. He's the CFO of Koniger Fluid Power. Our board secretary is Kathy Wichowski. She's a longtime Menasha teacher. Chris Vandehei, who's superintendent of schools in Menasha, is on our board. Joe Franzoy, a Menasha attorney, sits on our board. Jill Halverson is an adjunct professor at UW-Fox Valley. Jill Hermans is vice president of talent at Faith Technology. Cindy Witt is a marketing manager at Capital Credit Union. And then Glenn Gens is our teen rep, and we've just added Dave Schwarbel, who is a local businessman and engineer, to our board. So you can see that there's a lot of talent on our board, and a lot of expertise and a lot of dedication to making sure Menasha Library continues to live up to those excellent standards that we have created over the years. We have done a couple of different things in our board this year, restructuring our board. We formed a governance committee and a marketing and resource development committee. The governance committee is responsible for nominating officers, recruiting board members. We spent a couple of meetings talking about the types of skills we might need on our board, so they're going to recruit toward those skills. Like we recruited Cindy Witt because we felt like needed somebody to help us with our marketing materials, those kinds of things. We created a marketing and resource development board, and that marketing board is now looking at how we present ourselves to your constituents, to the community, how we tell them what our library is doing, what new programs we have to offer, what services we can help them with. So we're reviewing all of that, and hopefully we'll come up with some new ideas for how we let the community know what a great library they have. We have over 400 average users per day. Our programs are up over 7% from last year, and the community use is up to 2% to almost 500 uses per year. So when we expanded the library, one of the keys was that we would be a facility that the community could use for meetings and things, and that certainly is going well. In the budget that we presented you, we have highlighted a number of items in blue. So if you have the budget in front of you, while we have a budget of $1.5 million, our library board is really only has control over about 330 or 40,000. Because we're a department of the city, we follow all the guidelines for salary and wages and benefits and those kinds of things. Your building superintendent tells us what to project for heating and those kinds of things. So we really, as we look at our budget, control about 330,000, of which 170,000 is our 165,000 last year is our library materials budget. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that because we have a concern that we're falling behind in the area of purchasing materials, and we did a survey this past year, and 73% people that come to the library tell us they come to check out materials. In 2009, our materials budget was $190,000, And then with the budget issues that we had in the city, which it was reduced to 160, and it's stayed fairly constant since then. What that means, in essence, is that we're buying 4,000 less books and materials a year. So over 7 or 8 years, you might imagine that we've bought quite a few less books than and/or materials. We buy about 90% as books, and 8 or 9% is DVDs and technology items. So to continue to provide the excellence that we have in the past and to keep up with the demand for materials and et cetera, we're very concerned that that budget item is just falling farther and farther and farther behind every year. We understood where the city was at a few years back, and we've worked very diligently to look at the volume of books and materials. We've cut down from maybe buying 4 to 2 or from 8 to 4, trying to do our part to help with the situation. But we really, really would like to start that moving back up toward that 190,000. And having sat in your seat for a long time, I understand your challenges, but I'd like to ask if you could to move that back up to 175,000 this year, which is what we had requested. And eventually, over the next few years, we'd like to be able to get back to a level where we're maintaining our collection and providing that service to the community. So with that, I will turn it over to Vicki, and she can walk you through the budget, and we'll answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
So I did have some statistics for you. I submitted it to you in this annual report. Does anyone need one? And if you look in the inside, these are 2016 statistics. We circulated more than 400,000 books and audiobooks and videos and all of that. I have our holdings listed, our program attendance. Our program attendance is always going up. Programs are the way that we're the most popular right now. And then the other stuff we do, like having the computers in the meeting rooms and things like that. So if you ever have any questions about any of this, please don't hesitate to email me anytime. And don't hesitate to attend one of our board meetings. I know Ted did this year, and it was nice to have him there. Some things that we did new this year is we had a book bike. We took books out to the community. We were at the pool a couple times, and then we also biked books over to the Boys and Girls Club. We tried to get there every week. It was a rainy summer, but we tried to get there every week. And they participated in the summer reading program over there, and then we brought the books, and they could return them that way. They could actually return them anytime, but then we took them back with the book bike. We replaced the carpeting in the concourse area where you just walk in, where the computers are. That was our capital improvement. We got a grant from Faith Technologies to buy technology for Faith, is that what it's called? Yeah. To buy technology for children to check out. So these are like tablets. They're fun, but they're actually educational, and they don't connect to the internet, so they're completely locked down. And it shows kids how to swipe and end a program and start a program and things like that. These are so popular that I didn't have one to bring over to show you. But we have hundreds of them out in the public. I did also want to remind you that part of our county funding is about a third of our budget, and the funding from Winnebago County includes about $50,000 a year. That is for facilities improvement. The reason we get that is because of the 2004 renovation, and that's a 20-year commitment. So we only have 4 or 5 years more of that. Just so you know, that's $50,000, and that's ending soon. I'm going to remind you of that every year from now on. As far as the budget goes, the salaries are increased a little bit more than you'd expect because we have some expected retirements. And we increased it about a third, and we're hoping to make up another third just by keeping the positions open for a while, and then another third because we're going to hire at the bottom of the scale, and these people are all at the top. So that's how we're going to try to get that done. And let's see. Oh, in the past, you've asked me how much of the materials budget is spent on digital materials. And we've been spending about 10% of the book budget on digital materials, and that's things like ebooks, downloadable audiobooks, and music. What else? Oh, the online magazines. That hasn't changed. As far as capital improvements, we're asking for enhancements to the parking lot. We don't think the parking lot's very safe right now because kids they go around those planters and then they run out into the parking lot. And we thought it'd be nice to have stripes so people know that those people will cross right there and look for kids especially crossing. And maybe even speed bumps and just looking at improving the parking lot so that it's safer. We've just seen some things that have scared us. We need to improve the security camera system. It needs better software, and we need at least 1 or 2 cameras that can actually focus and show what people actually look like. Right now it's all really, really blurry. Adam keeps saying we need this chiller recommission, and yeah, the chiller keeps going out. It was a very cold summer at the library because they had to run it on high so that it ran it all. So there was that. And then he's also recommending LED lighting at $10,000, and Adam estimates that upgrade would pay for itself in 4 years. And then we'd also like to do a study room remodel. We'd actually like to add another little study room because we have a lot more people doing tutoring for English as a second language and things like that. And that room is in constant use, and there's more demand for study rooms. And that's all I have. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, you answered a lot of my questions. So, but thank you for this. It's very helpful. And I would like to thank the board for your volunteerism. It's very well appreciated. I did like your book bike mobile or whatever showing up at different festivals. I thought that was really nice exposure for the library. And Director Lenz, congratulations in keeping our library functioning at such a high level. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Something former Alderman Engelbert said about the budget. I do appreciate you letting us know that $170,000 number. It's almost like Director Radke used to tell us with the streets, if you fall below a certain number, you're not keeping up with it. And if we're dropping below that number that you think we're at, we're not keeping up. So we need to know that. I appreciate that. Director, on page 130, the last sentence here with major changes from the 2017. The last sentence here, staffing for 2018 will be at 5 hours fewer staff hours per week. Is that for everybody or for?
No, that's just overall.
Oh, okay.
Somehow it just fell that way. instead of having like 20-hour-a-week people, it helps us more to have more people and work as, on a casual basis, like 10 to 14 hours a week.
Okay.
And so as people left, no one was changed this way and no one was, laid off. But as people left and we replaced them with more people at fewer hours. And it ended up being an overall decrease of 5 hours a week.
Okay. Thank you. I agree with you on the parking lot. I think we'll probably have to put a speed bump in. It's just, my wife and I just came through 441 at Racine Street down the roundabout there. And she said, at 5 o'clock here, she said, they're going to have to put speed bumps into these things. I mean, it's just a racetrack. So traffic is, speeds are going up, and we need to reduce that in that parking lot. And I was glad to hear, I was going to ask you to pay back on the LED lighting. You said that's in 4 years. That's good to know. And especially today, security, appreciate you upgrading these cameras. We need to get good images, and that's great for, we have to follow up with the police department or something. It's very, very important nowadays.
Right.
And the only other thing, do you have a lockdown capability for the library?
Well, lockdown, like,
I mean, let's say the police said there was someone on Main Street, we see it every day in the paper or in TV with, let's say, a gun on Main Street or Racine Street, and, you've got a call or something to, like our schools, if there's something in the area, boom, they lock them down. And I was wondering if we have that capability at the library.
we could lock the doors, sure.
Okay, but you don't have the automatic system or anything that
No.
just locks it? Okay, thank you very much, and thanks for running such a great library, and again, thanks for your volunteerism.
Alderman Zelinski, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. On the LED lighting, I don't know who this would be a question for, but first off, I know LED lighting's come a long way. I've heard with reading with LED lighting's different. Is there a certain kind of lighting you guys will be purchasing that it's a different shade or something?
Yeah, they've been experimenting this year. They've got some that are more blue and some that are more yellow, and they know which ones are more effective now.
Effective for the reading, okay. And is there an abundance of lighting that's going to be left over as far as bulbs and stuff because of this upgrade that they'll just go to waste? Or is this going to be phased in, this LED lighting?
Oh, I don't know.
No, what we're targeting would be our pendant lighting.
Okay.
Adam, we're going to need you to grab a mic.
So close.
What we're targeting would be the pendant lighting, the high bay lighting. And when we go through them, we have to get a lift over there. We usually order bulbs at that point in time. So no, there won't be any bulbs going to waste, at least new bulbs, let's say that. And the 4-year payback is a minimum because there's 6 55-watt bulbs in each one of those pendants, and we think we might be able to, go from 6 bulbs to maybe just 4, as the fixtures were originally
Different wattage.
purchased, and shortly after we opened up, we added the additional bulbs in it. So that's what we're shooting for. So I wouldn't think that there would be any waste in anything that's purchased or on hand. So
No, that was just my question for that. Thank you. And as far as the reading through some of your statistics, the 2016 circulation, you had a total number of 422,950. Is that up or down from last year? Are you seeing more?
It's down.
It's down a substantial amount. Well, do you know what last year?
No, it's single digits. I don't know exactly what
Oh,
it
just-
is, 2 or
okay.
3%.
Oh, that's not, okay. Thank you.
Alderman Sevenick.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess my question is going to be probably for John, so if you want to give John the mic. My question is as far as the other communities that use our library. and how we get compensated for that. Are you able to explain that? I mean, I know that we do receive money from the county.
That's something more that Vicky probably can answer than I could answer that.
For instance, an example is obviously we're sharing it with Fox Crossing, so I'd like to know how they compensate
Each
us.
county has its own formula. So Winnebago County has a formula, and they take into account not just circulation, but how many people live in our service area. And our service area includes all of Menasha and the east side of Fox Crossing. And we also count every single circ that goes to anyone in Winnebago County that doesn't live in the city. So that's all gets factored in, and then they present it to first the Ag and Extension Committee of the county board, and then the county board itself. So that's how we get that funding. Well, then, and there's that facilities portion.
Right, you
That's
mentioned that.
Yeah. And then in Calumet County, they have a different formula. We've actually petitioned them to change it. We'd like to be treated more like the other libraries that have some of their city residents living in Calumet County. So what they're proposing to the board next month is a new formula, and we'll get a little bit more.
I did understand the Winnebago part of it, and I guess that's where I was coming from, is that we're not just Winnebago County. It's also, we're in Calumet County, and I guess I just didn't really see anything here on this blue sheet
Oh,
that represented Calumet County's share.
it's
What?
it's on the back.
Oh, I didn't even know there was a backside. All righty, thank you so much.
Let me just add, Stan, that
Okay,
Calumet County hadn't changed their formula for reimbursement to us for a number of years. So Vicki and I and Mark Aaron from Wald System met with their library committee of Winnebago County or Calumet County, excuse me. And one of the things we shared is that with our expansion out to Lake Park, there are now a heck of a lot more Calumet County people living in Menasha and using our library, and we asked them to consider that in looking at the formula, because I think it dated back to 2000 or 2004 or something like that. And the response back so far is that they are going to recommend that change to the Outagamie County Board. We won't hear that until
Calumet, you mean?
I was on the
I
Winnebago
understood you.
board, and I keep, the Calumet County Board, I assume is probably meeting around the same time Winnebago does, and you people do in November. So we're keeping our fingers crossed and hoping that they increase that contribution to us. And we've approached them peacefully and made a logical request to them, and if that doesn't work, we may be sitting down with the city attorney to see how that goes. But the feedback has been real positive from Calumet County.
That's good.
So.
What needs to be realized is that even though we're a small part of Calumet County, it's my understanding that this portion is actually the second largest populous area of Calumet County. So I would hope that they would take that serious. So I had one, oh yeah, this is a minor thing, but I just, maybe for Vicki or your staff, that email newsletter that you send out, I absolutely love that. It is so informative to me. I actually use that to find out what's going on in the community, because it's not just library stuff, it's other things that you're willing to share with the rest of the community, and I really like that.
Thanks.
Alderman Grady.
Oh, thank you. Just one small little question about the capital projects, the parking lot improvements. Would that be performed by our Menasha Public Works crew, or is that an outside?
Yes.
I assume
Okay.
so.
Thanks.
Yes, we're planning on taking on that ourselves, yes.
Alderman Nichols.
Thank you. You mentioned your library materials budget and a desire to return to the level years past, which I believe was $190,000. What's budgeted here is $170,000 for 2018. Tell us more what that additional funding would allow you to do and how that's different from what you do today.
Well, it would allow us to buy more books and more copies of books to fill holds faster. And we've actually been cutting back on things because we don't have the money that we once had, so we've cut back on subscriptions. Some of them die, but we've also cut back on some of the more expensive subscriptions. And these grants from Fit Technologies that help us buy children's technology, that technology changes every day. And, you know, they've promised to give us more money next year, but then like the next year, it probably won't be there. And like I said, these things are just flying off the shelf. We actually built a nice big shelf for those things, and it's empty.
That sort of leads into my next question about why additional books or subscriptions or pieces of technology are important to the library.
Well, most of that is aimed at children, and we felt it was important to have children exposed to technology at a young age, well, actually, we talked to the director at the Boys and Girls Club, and she said she spends so much time just showing them how to turn on a computer and log into a computer that by the time everybody is at that point, she just has a very short window to teach them at anything. And we thought, well, what the heck's going on? And she said, well, these kids just don't have the technology and the iPads and stuff that, you know, advantaged kids have. And then we thought we could fill that hole by checking out these little, they're called launch pads.
I think I've tried to check a few out. They're hard to get.
They are hard to get.
And how about those additional subscriptions in books?
Well, that is, like, some of the more expensive ones are Value Line. And we had maybe 5 or 6 gentlemen who came in and looked up, you know, the value of their stocks and things. And they missed that, but that was just too expensive to keep up. And there are other magazines that we've just had to make a choice.
So would it be safe to say that the library is trying to fill a need in the community through their material budget?
Right.
And how do you go about determining what would be a sufficient level of funding for a library our size?
That kind of thing is part of our state reporting, so we can look at any library around here and see what portion of their budget is devoted to their materials budget. And ours is about 10%. Nina's is much higher, it's like 16%. And Appleton's is 12 or 13. So that's one place that we're actually lower than other area libraries.
Would an additional $5,000 get you within that range?
It would get us up at least 1 or 2 percentage points.
Yeah, if I may, you know, less money, we buy less materials, we have less to offer the community. And we don't expect to get back to a level, if we'd have got a 2% increase since 2009, we'd be up around 207, 8, 10,000. We're at 165, and right now this would be 170. We would like to start recovering or moving closer. It'll take a long time to get back to the level of funding that we spent to buy materials. But we'd at least like to start heading back in that direction. You know, the people that come to the library, I mentioned, we're buying 4,000 less books or materials. Books are about 90% and technology is about 10%, so we're buying 4,000 less items every year. Over a period of time, you're getting farther behind. And we're concerned that if we don't start recovering that, we'll just keep getting farther and farther behind, which means we have less to offer our community. And it would be harder to maintain our standard if we keep reducing what we can offer our users. So we thought it was important that we just let you know that and let you know that we at least would like to start moving back to the level that we were offering several years back. So.
I recall this being a concern when I was on the library board, and I think my tenure there ended in 2013, and it's now 2017. And I appreciate you coming here tonight with an ask. So,
Unusual, but
well, you've come with an ask, and so I think it would be prudent of us to put it out there. So I'll make a motion to increase the library funding, the library materials budget by $5,000 for a total of $175,000 in 2018.
Is there, Ted? Is it Ted? Okay. There's a motion, a second, to increase the library's material budget to $175,000. Is there discussion? No discussion? Alderman Zelinski.
Thank you. So would the main aim for this be to get the circulation numbers up? Is that what as far as materials, that's what that would inflict on?
Well, that funding from Winnebago and Calumet County is based on how much we circulate to people who live in the rural areas of Calumet and Winnebago County. So if we had more bestsellers and things for them to come and pick up, yes, that could increase funding. It would have an impact on that.
And how much of this percentage of this amount of circulation is to our actual residents, or do you not have that? Is there a percentage or a number or anything, or is that not calculated?
It probably matches the funding, so about a third of it is from the counties, and 2/3 is from the city, and that matches about the circulation.
Okay. So the problem is, I see it as with the library. I've always had a challenge of this since I was a little kid. I only like to go there to get the DVDs and the books and the CDs and stuff like that. And I would just like to see more of libraries going towards books and e-books and stuff like that, and start getting away from CDs, DVDs, games, and less technology, to tell you the truth, because kids are getting addicted to their phones, getting addicted to iPads, getting addicted to computers. And I think a library is a place where we should start getting back to our grassroots and with books and stuff. So it's hard for me to, even though it's only $5,000, but I still see that $56,000 increase in the overall budget. It's just difficult for me to vote.
We don't circulate games. I won't circulate games.
Okay, games
They're too violent. And that we don't have a way of making sure that they get into the right hands, depending on their violence rating.
Oh, okay.
So we don't have games. And
Oh, I just said that because back when I was going to the library more often when I was younger, they had games, so.
and our CD collection is much reduced because,
Because of funding?
because of funding and people are, they're downloading their music and, yeah. So we really are concentrating on the books.
Yeah, 92% of that line item is for books, where only 8% goes toward other things, so.
Okay.
And the issue with it is that we're not buying as many books as we used to.
So with the number going down of total circulation, so you think that's reflectant on we're not having the amount of books we should be buying to give back to the community, I guess? All right, thank you.
It's the new books and the new DVDs that bring people in.
Alderman Sevenick.
Again, my issue with this is going to be reimbursement and being shared by other entities such as Fox Crossing. I mean, if we put 5,000 in, are we putting the full 5,000 or are we going to be reimbursed by the counties? Because I think the counties' budgets are done.
But, yeah, and they look at the funding that you put in like 2 years from now, so there's a lag.
Okay?
But it does, the city funding is a major part of that formula for both Calumet County and Winnebago County.
I just want to make certain that I'm understood that if we here in the city here all of a sudden add 5,000, that we are going to be reimbursed fairly by the other entities out there. You're saying down the line we will be?
Well, it's not a reimbursement per se, but then that part of the formula goes up too, and then their share of funding goes up.
So this number here that represents the county's commitments could change this year?
No, there's a lag. It would be next year.
Something just tells me that we're subsidizing this if we add this 5,000. And if I'm wrong, I need either John or someone to reassure me that this isn't just coming out of the tax rolls of the city of Menasha. Because I'm tired of subsidizing other communities. That is going to be my main goal, is to stop that completely. We've done it for, almost a decade or more, and it's going to stop. So if you can, I think Jim might be able to answer here.
Well, yeah, what the county does is they look at the amount of people from Fox Crossing that are coming over here. They look at the amount of dollars that the city is providing for the library, and then they have a formula based on those numbers that reflects what they give to us. So if our circulation goes down, if we're spending less money, less people are coming here, it's going to go down. If we increase it, then we have a good chance that it's going to go up. There are several factors involved in that, and I don't know how many. I have no idea how many people in Fox Crossing that they estimate that use our library, but they are contributing $350,000 this past year for the Fox Crossing people living on the east side. In proportion to the city of Menasha residents, I don't think that's that significant.
Well, our operating cost is over $1,088,000, right?
Right.
So. All right.
Alderman Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with something through our budget process this year, we've really been looking at what services we're providing for these villages. They're challenging us all the time now. We provide services to them that we're really not getting paid for. And during the Public Works budget, I asked our director and the superintendents to, we need to take a harder look at that. So it's not just your budget here. We're really looking at that lately for all the budgets. So, Director Lenz, this $5,000, what would that be earmarked for again?
The $5,000?
That Alderman Nichols made the addition of $5,000 to the.
That would be.
What would you be?
That would be the
Could you
book
just
budget.
could you turn the microphone towards you a little bit? There you go.
That would go directly into the book budget. It's called library materials. It's line 30-14.
Okay. Okay, I thought you were going to buy some special computer or
Well,
something that
it's
you said is
just-
flying off the
It's
shelves.
just overall more, yeah. And the technology for kids, they're called the launch pads. They're
Yes.
actually a little tablet,
Okay,
but they have like fun games and things that teach people, that teach the kids letters and numbers.
and what one of those cost?
They're about $100 a piece.
Oh, okay. Okay. So you were looking at with this additional money, you could put some of that into that for additional,
Right.
okay. Thank you.
Alderman Collier.
$5,000 in a lot of money, more or less. They're falling behind. They're asking for help. I can find more than a few places to adjust some money to get them their $5,000. It's to improve Menasha's library, not Fox Crossings, Appleton's, or Nina. If you don't have stuff to get out and circulate, you cannot increase your revenue and make money. So I think it'd be a good $5,000 to spend for the kids of Menasha that would use this and help us in the long run by having more material. Thank you.
John?
Jen and I were talking a little bit, and the funding question that Council President Sevenik had, we believe that there's probably a 2-year lag on the stats, the statistics that would probably factor into the budget that the county would be proposing for funding going forward. So if you're looking at the circulation numbers for calendar year 2017 and looking at the funding level for 2017, that probably impacts the once those final numbers are realized after the end of the 2017 calendar year, you know about those numbers in 18, which would be preparation then for the 2019 budget. So then my thought process would be as if we provide the funding increase for the 2018 budget, and then the circulation numbers, which would be a factor into the formula, which wouldn't be known until the end of 2018, early 2019, that probably wouldn't impact the funding formula until probably 2020's budget from the county level. So it's similar to like what we do with the fire department. You have the statistics after the end of the calendar year, which aren't known until the next January or February, and then you use that for the following year's budget. So there's probably like a 2-year lag. So if we do something for 2018's budget, it probably wouldn't ripple into the impact on the funding formula, looking at all the communities until probably maybe 2020 at the county level for what we would get for an impact. So it's probably a 2-year lag.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call 5-1.
Alderman Nichols?
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Council, the library. And the library board came with an ask, and I thought it was important to at least honor that ask, and thank you for the discussion about that. And I want to thank Director Lenz and the board for their work at the library. I would say over the last 2-3 years or so, I've seen sort of this renewed and felt this renewed sense of urgency around how the library places itself in the community now, but also how it will remain relevant in the future. And so I spend a lot of time at the library, check out about 50 books a month, and I also help support the library through paying fines, a lot of them.
And we appreciate that.
And during my time and visits there, I've felt this renewed vigor in the staff and just within the walls of the library. So thank you very much for that.
Thanks.
Alderman Taylor?
I just want to add about this item you were talking about before for $100. And, that's something that people in the community might want to get behind and make a donation to that. So I'm not on the websites too much or anything. I like the newspaper instead of the electronic. So I don't know if that's something you would want to put on there, showcase that, and talk it up like you did here tonight.
One of the reasons to form that marketing committee was to publicize things like this to the community and ask for support or donations.
Yep.
So what we have, the road we're taking is to analyze what it is we're doing, what we're wanting to do, how we're going to do that, and then if there are opportunities to ask for donations from the community. Faith Technology jumped in on this one, and it was great to have them partner with us to give us, a grant for a specific item like this. And so hopefully in the future, until the people that are in a position to donate to the library understand what it is we do and what we're looking for, it probably won't happen. So it's our challenge to let those who can in the community know what we need, and hopefully we can build that partnership.
Some years ago, I heard that the print media was going to die, and I was in the printing business my whole life, and somehow I didn't believe that until about 2 years ago. In the lunchroom, I look around, all the young people were on their electronic devices. Us old guys all had the physical newspaper, and but looking at that, I think the newspaper someday physically will be dead. Do we look at the opportunities with Apple, Google, Microsoft? I know or who's ever making this type of device you're talking about. I know they have great funds for, especially for libraries, putting this stuff out there. So there's an opportunity with this marketing. And I think we're at that level, Jim, where even at the city level here, we need to move up to that. With the city, we need to say, here's a wish list, and maybe somebody would like to check one of those off with writing us a check. So I think that's great. Thanks.
Okay, seeing no other comments, thank you for coming tonight, Director Lunds and board members. We appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you for listening to us. We appreciate your questions and your interest in the library. We're very committed to maintaining the excellent library we have. We're very proud of it. For a community our size to have an outstanding library, I think, is a feather in our cap, and it's our challenge to keep it that way. So thank you.
Aren't you glad you came a second time?
Yeah, if I come next week, could I get the money?
Try it out.
Well, no, they're out there.
You ready, Kevin?
All set.
Okay.
All right, so thanks for letting us present our budget to you, to the council, to the mayor tonight. First thing, Deputy Chief Voss had handed out just some highlights for our department for this past year. So if you don't mind, I'll just kind of go through that a little bit. We made a paper copy this year instead of a PowerPoint, so that if you wanted to take notes or have thoughts or ideas as we move along, you were able to do that a lot easier than if it was on the video on the TV. So I'll go through that, and then if you have any questions, we can then go through the budget part of our presentation. So first page there just talks a little bit about our mission statement. And again, we, over the last year, kind of redid or reevaluated our mission statement. And so it just says, Neenah Menasha Fire Rescue consists of committed professionals whose mission is to provide the highest standard of service through prevention, education, fire suppression, emergency medical response, technical fire, and community interaction to preserve the quality of life and all property of all those within the cities of Neenah and Menasha. And we felt very, very pleased with all the different things that we provide our communities. And I think as each year goes by with all the training and the classes and the different events that we do, I think we provide them at a very high level. A little bit about our department. We're a career fire department that provides service 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We have 63 line staff members, 5 administrative personnel. We have 3 shifts that make up 21 firefighters per shift on a rotating 24-hour day. We have 4 fire stations, and within those 4 fire stations, we have 4 engines. We have 1 ladder that we call a quint, 1 command vehicle, and again, we have our 5 administrators. So what do we respond to? We respond to all structure fires, vehicle fires, and wildland fires, automobile accidents that include extrication, patient treatment, stabilization, fluid spill cleanup. All medical responses, trauma responses, carbon monoxide, and mass casualty incidents. Open water, swift water, and ice rescues, confined space, high angle, trench, and subsurface rescues, structural collapse, and other types of rescues, hazmat response, gas leaks, down power lines, smoke and odor complaints, animal rescues, and recreational fire complaints. Pretty much, if somebody has a bad day or if something's wrong, they're calling the fire department. So the next slide or the next part is our accomplishments for 2017. Again, this is during our first 10 months as we prepared this, so we still have a couple months of accomplishments that I'm sure that we will complete by the end of the year. One of the biggest accomplishments is we received the $280,000 FEMA grant for our self-contained breathing apparatus. We have made upgrades to our training grounds. It's a cost sharing for these upgrades, which was developed with the Neenah Police Department, which reduced our 2017 CIP budget. We developed and implemented a training manual for our new firefighters. Pretty much in the past, they were assigned their 4 weeks. They came in and we had some things on the schedule that we wanted them to train on. And it was pretty much 1 or 2 people could take them training. We created this really nice manual, and now if someone's busy or someone can't, we can hand it off to a captain or an officer. They can grab the book and take that person out training. And so what that's developed into is not just for new hires now. We're going to be creating manuals for our drivers, for our shift inspectors, so they have basically a knowledge book of what they need to learn. Again, it's all for our succession planning also for the future. We have hired and trained 3 new firefighters this past year. And again, we held our annual Fire Officer Leadership Academy, again, as part of our succession planning. We received a $2,500 grant from Walmart for a water rescue program, and funds will be used for training. Completed 2 tabletop emergency operations center exercises within both cities. We updated our strategic plan. And we began a cancer awareness reduction program with our safety committee. This work will continue through 2018. And then we recently raised, I think the end of it was in September, I think the end of September. So for 3 months, we helped raise $5,000 for the St. Joe's food program. So next year, our 2018 goals will be to implement and purchase our SCBA system following the FEMA grant guidelines, spec and take delivery of a new fire engine, and follow our vehicle replacement plan. We would like to establish office hours here at Menasha City Hall, and so that we're available to staff, aldermen, and anybody else that would like to visit us here over in Menasha. So we would like to work with the mayor and staff to see if we can have some type of office hours here periodically during the week, or we'll figure out what that timeline would be. So we'd like to continue and update the training manual for new firefighters. We've used it and updated it 3 times now. So as we've had new hires and we've trained them and they've been online, we always go back and review what could be done better, easier. We even bring in that candidate that went through that program to see what we can do to make it easier. And then we would like, again, like I said, develop that training manual for the driver operator position. So even when they're in the process of being able to move up to drive, we'd like to have that manual so that they know all the different types of checks and systems that are on the apparatus that they can just reference in a book and then utilize it while they're training, create guidelines that are get checked off as they're completed different tasks in order to be completed in that training. Page 4 just kind of gives a brief overview of how we're funded through our consolidated department between Neenah and Menasha. And as you can see, since 2004, that percentage has fluctuated a percent or two at the most, so it relatively has stayed the same. And then on the bottom, it just shows our overview of our budget for last year and for this year. And then on the last page, we've compiled and kept track of grants and awards. And so since 2004, we've been awarded $2,136,000 in grants for the fire department. So we do have a couple members on staff that's what they do. They write grants, look for grants, and so since 2004, we've had a little over $2 million in grants, so including one of the fire stations. Anybody have any questions on our presentation?
Well, I'm going to jump around a little bit.
Sure.
First, establish office hours that are here in Menasha. Does that mean you want to keep me out of Neenah? Okay, just having fun.
I'm always available.
Okay, on your grant for $280,000 for the FEMA grant for self-containing breathing apparatuses, how does that work out? You can only spend it on the dive team equipment, and you can only spend so much a year, and that's carried over, or you got to spend that much? You got that much to spend?
So that is not for the dive team. The SCBA's are for the firefighters. Those are the air packs for firefighters. So the current ones that we have, their limit, their 15-year life they're done after this year. So how that works is that we have the grant. There is a match for the grant, and then we utilize the funds then that are given through the grant to purchase what we need to replace what we currently have.
Do you go on a cycle where like 777, or is it 14, 1 year 7 when it's up, or just the amount of hours that are on it, then it's got to get recycled?
It is by the number of years, correct?
Okay.
So it's by the number of years. It's not by how often they're used, how many times they're used.
Okay.
Because the bottles themselves are hydro tested, and so those bottles at some point can only be hydro tested so many times. Yep, so that gives it that 15-year.
So if you were going to guess, you have 21 people that got to have them all the time, and probably another 4 or 5 as a backup?
So what we have are they're located on each rig. So there's 4 or 5 SCBA's located on each rig. So having 5, that's 25 right there. Plus we do have some spare, some backups, and then we do have spare bottles as well. So if we're at a structure fire and somebody runs out of a bottle, our engines have extra bottles that we can pull just to, so we're not having to fill the ones that are empty. we just load them back up right away with a fresh one. So we do have spare, just the bottles themselves.
Okay, and then we're going to be getting a new fire truck to replace one because it'll put the guidelines that we've established for medical purposes on the trucks, keeping them going. Down the road, I want to talk to you about that. I think maybe we can stretch that or change that a little bit, but that's down the road. And then my only other question is, if you're going to cut $2,000 or $3,000, would you cut it out of your gas, or where do you think you'd want to cut it? Ain't that nice tonight?
If we wanted to cut something out of our budget, we'd have to take a look and see where we'd have to take it.
I'll let you have a slide. Thanks.
Alderman Taylor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief, welcome back.
Thank you.
I know you had the health thing, and that does take time, 6-8 weeks, so appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you.
Although you got a talented crew, they could have covered for you, too. You probably heard it with the library, and we talked about with Public Works and our park department, and since towns want to be villages, and they want bragging rights to their taxes, and want to put us down for our taxes, and we're trying to really get a grip on, are we providing services for these villages that we should be taxing them for? And so the playing field has changed from town to village. Big difference. Now they're directly competing. We're open for business. They're open for business development, subdivisions. And so we got to be careful that we're not shooting ourselves in the foot out here and giving too much to the villages now than what we should. Maybe they should pony up and take on the responsibilities, and that comes up in dollars. And there's a change coming here. I think you heard other council members talking about it. We're always criticized for our high tax rate. Could you tell me what the cost of the dive team is and the funding for that? And, kind of, since we're on television tonight, that's a big thing that comes up with the public. We first heard about this, it's about 5 years ago, maybe 6.
Sure. So when we talk about the dive team, just want to make everywhere aware that's not a separate team that we have. So it's not our open water, it's not our swift water, it's not our ice rescue team, and then a dive team. When we say dive team, that's all part of our water rescue that we provide. So dive is one entity of water rescue. So when we have when you're looking at the budget for a water rescue, and it's right for the proposed is 3,600, that includes everything. That's the dive, that's water, open water, ice, swift water. And so the way we have it is, and we'll mention the dive team, is that if there's a dive call, all our members that are trained in open water and using the boat, they're out there. They can be intertwined into different job functions. So somebody that is a diver goes along with the boat and is prepared to dive. If they get out there and they're going to perform a rescue or pull somebody off a boat or pull somebody out of the water and they don't need to dive, they just switch gears and help pull that person out of the water. So they don't necessarily call the dive team to just perform a dive. So everybody's kind of intertwined how we have it trained right now. So if you've looked over the past few years, and since Victor and I have taken the reins on the water rescue, you'll notice that there's a huge reduction in what we've done with our water rescue budget. It used to be, and I'm going to guess somewhere 20,000 and above for water rescue. So we made a commitment to you and to the cities that we would look at different ways on reducing it. So when you see the budget for water rescue, you will see a drastic budget, and that includes all the entities of our water rescue. And we're still committed to keep it that way. Some of the things that we've done is we made phone calls and tried partnering with different entities within our city. So for example, we contacted our police departments for one to see if anybody would like to be part of our water rescue team, most notably part of our dive. And we had Captain Halderson from Menasha Police Department. He agreed to help us out and do some of our training, which reduced some of our costs and having somebody else come in and do the training. So we did things like that. We've worked with the Parks Department in both cities in helping them retrieve buoys from the river, from the swimming areas. We've helped with, in the marina, our divers helped locate some moorings and stuff for the docks. So we've tried to provide some working relationship with all the different departments within both cities to help reduce costs, but yet help reduce costs for everybody. And so all those different things that we've done, we've tried to keep those costs as minimum as possible. And you'll see, like I said, just having the dive team, what it was in the past, was at 20,000 or whatever that budget was. We've reduced that down to 3,600, and that includes all of our water rescue programs. We still continue to look for different ways to fund that. And I received a grant from Walmart probably about 3 months ago for our water rescue team. And so we can utilize that for some of our training with having the new guys the new firefighters that have started and they want to be part of that team. Now we have a source for that. We were committed and told that some of the equipment that was for the dive team has been purchased for, and we won't have to see that cost every year, and we're committed to that. So I think right now we're in a maintenance mode with our water rescue, that with the funds that we have coming in and the different programs and things that we are still working on, I think we're set at our water rescue, and I think you'll see it running very, very efficiently.
I appreciate that, because out there in the public, we still hear that $100,000 number, and was that the original 100,000 was to get the program up?
That was just to get it up and running.
Okay.
So that was all the training for 15 firefighters. That was the cost of equipment and to get it started. And so over the years, obviously that amount has come down. So that's not an every year cost.
Well, that's the way the public is still perceiving that, so just mentioning that to you, so education-wise or something, maybe you can help
Sure.
us with that.
Okay.
That's why I asked you to explain it.
Sure.
While we're on the dive team, and when I was on the fire commission a few years back, Chief Auksher, we went into a detail about the shoreline on the cities of Menasha and Neenah, and looked at where we're responding to. And I know we're also, I don't know if it's under contract or something with the county, that we take care of the north end of Lake Winnebago and Little Lake Butamore.
Yes.
Okay. And looking at those maps, I think Little Lake Butamore, we found out that there was almost 3/4 of the property in Little Lake Butamore is now Fox Crossing. And at that time, I asked that a letter be written to the town of Menasha, Fox Crossing, town of Harrison, village of Harrison, about if they would contribute to these programs outside of our scope of what we have to do with the county. For instance, I don't think we have to go east of Oneida Street, Fire Lane 1. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so Calumet County's supposed to take that. And you and I have talked about this. Last year, we got called in the spring, I think it was on a Sunday night, 3 kids out on an ice floe off a high cliff. Somehow we got the call. we went out, took care of that, pretty much saved these kids' lives. And I was shocked when I asked the chief, did we get a thank you from anybody? No. From the village, from the parents? No. And, you know, I don't want to put a dollar amount on somebody's lives or anything, but let's say we're out at High Cliff Boat Landing, they're saving kids from Harrison, and the same thing happens in Little Lake Buteau down here with somebody from Menasha or over Neenah by the lighthouse or something. Our crews are over there, and we've asked them to contribute to our budget for this, and they've refused back, at least when I was on the fire commission. And again, there's these costs here with these villages challenging us all the time. And, you know, do we write them more letters and say, you're either part of this or the line's drawn here at Oneida Street or Fire Lane 1, that we're not going to respond to this. And I would just hate to have someone come up here and from Menasha and somebody passed away because we're out in another jurisdiction out there, and not even a thank you from their department for that rescue, you know? So I think there's some growing pains here with how we're looking at these villages, and you hear the voice up here with other aldermen trying to look at that in every way. So that's something we're definitely going to have to, I think, some more open dialogue with them, asking them if they would contribute. Or we do like Theta Clark does with the Theta Star. I think to take that off now, it's either 10,000 or 13,000. You know, if we're going to go out of our jurisdiction, maybe it should be a $10,000 bill that goes out to them, not just a $200 or $500 bill. We have all this equipment, all this training. Same with the helicopter. They have all that investment. That's what you're paying for when you're going out there, and not just a friendly call. So I would be in favor of, if we have to get out of our jurisdiction, that it be a substantial amount. Either that, or if they become part of our partnership, then it would be a reduced number. But they're directly competing with us now, the villages, and we're losing market shares, subdivisions, other things. And it's all because of that tax dollar and what we're being taxed. And like it or not, but that's the reality of it. And you guys do a fantastic job what you do. I think we give you the proper tools to do that, and we appreciate that. You know, an outstanding department. And but we got to make some decisions on this end too, but with your help and making sure that everybody is comfortable with what we're doing too. Alderman Collier has had some cost reduction measures that he's been talking about for this past year. I think a workshop or some sort of a meeting to talk about these different issues. Something I bring up, because if something happens, I want to make sure that I said it again. First and foremost, I'm a safety guy. Safety, 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 okay? And even when it came to the library parking lot, we probably need to put speed bumps out there, and because people aren't slowing down anymore. So when it comes to your department, and I believe it's when it relates to union activities, fundraising, out in the public right away, I really have a problem with that, because I've had people tell me that they've been startled and would somebody stand outside the window of their car at a light. And you guys know how dangerous it is, even when you got your trucks out there and your lights on, people probably driving over your hoses or something too, if they want to get through. So it's a dangerous place, and I don't think Fill the Boot should be, and is that a union fundraiser?
That is,
Okay.
yes.
And, we have our trucks, our equipment there, and I don't think that's the proper place for that. We're violating the and I forget what it's called with the,
Alderman Taylor, how does this relate to the budget? We're a little off topic.
yes, it is, as far as the safety of our people, maybe what we need to do in this, to put more money in to protect them. I believe when you're in the street, there's certain signage, except for emergency vehicles, like you're supposed to have a 500 feet, 100 feet, whatever, seeing there's something ahead. And I think we're violating that by having our employees out in the right of way. And it's, you want to do it in Walmart's parking lot or somebody else gives you permission, I think it's a great thing. But out in traffic, when I said this last time, I said somebody's going to get killed, and that happened in Michigan. Someone got killed. And the guy ran him over, a firefighter, because he was mad about something, okay? So it happens. I don't want any family up here with us. You know, I don't want a loss of life for a union fundraising effort. And I really believe we need to get out of the street or need to have the proper measures, and it should be done on maybe on an off-duty, or if it's done safely, I got no problem with it too. So I said it to you, I said it to Chief Auction, and I still see it happening. On this vehicle, is there any way we could push this truck back 1 year yet? I mean, is the truck in failing?
Do you want to talk a little bit about the truck? Sure, so inevitably this question was going to come up. All I'll say is that every year you push the truck back, it has cascading effects on our replacement schedule. Okay. Right now, we have 2 fire trucks that are the exact same age. Both of them were pre-consolidation purchases in 1997, and we're kind of in a sticky spot right now because these 2 trucks, one of them is still frontline, one of them is in reserve right now, but we use it as our backup engine. I just think that this would be the absolute wrong time at the very first purchase on the accepted replacement schedule that both city councils approved, to now push it back and not follow that schedule. And the reason it's the bad timing is because we have 2 trucks that are exactly the same age and in about the same condition, and I'm a little concerned about having both of them go down at the same time.
Okay. Do we know that this truck's going to cost us much money? Have we bid out three different companies on this truck?
So I think maybe at first time in history, or at least as long as I can remember, we did price a truck with 2 different manufacturers. So we went to Pierce and we went to Seagrave out of Clintonville, and we've spec'd a truck, similar truck at both locations, and we're just getting those numbers back now. So I'm not going to commit to the numbers or make them public just yet, but they're very competitive, and I think I think by doing that, it's caused the price to be checked, and I think it's the right way to look at a purchase of this size. I don't feel comfortable taking a number from one manufacturer and saying that's the best number out there. So we did this year. It took us quite a bit more time to do it this way, but we're talking about, you know, over $500,000 worth of tax dollar money. We should spend some time and make sure that we're getting the best price for everybody, and that's what we've
Right, and I know we had trouble with certain brands here a while back, and it wasn't just one, it was another and another, and then at that time I said, you know, maybe we should be looking at other manufacturers here. I know you guys like Pierce, you're close, you got a good relationship. I see the guys out in public wearing the Pierce polo shirts, and so I know there's, you know, kind of a relationship there. I always like to have 3 bids. I know there's other truck companies in the state of Wisconsin.
Yeah, so one of the criteria, the reason we went with Pierce and Seagrave is they're single source manufacturers. So they build their own chassis, they build their bodies, they're all built under their label. That scenario doesn't play out really anywhere else in Wisconsin that I know of. The rest of them would buy a chassis from a chassis provider, and then they'd build a fire truck on the back of that chassis. And now you're dealing with 2 different companies when it comes to warranty, if it's chassis warranty versus body warranty. Single source manufacturers are always typically easier to deal with. And Pierce has been good to us. They've been responsive to our needs. They've made some significant changes in their manufacturing process that we were impressed with this time. So And Seagrave was a very interesting tour as well. So, but those single source vendors, I think that's really important for a department like ours that runs the calls that we do, to have a truck that's built by one builder versus marrying a couple of builders together.
Pierce non-union, Seagrave's union.
I know Seagrave is union. I can't speak for if Pierce is, I think they are now. No, Seagrave is union for sure. I asked the question, but I think Pierce is a mixed bag. I'm not positive.
Talking to some Pierce people, they say, we should pretty much be ordering the same type in, and not getting into your specs or anything by no means, but this is what they say, you want to, years ago, I don't know what new cars I've lost on it, but used to have, Chevrolet had a Bel Air, which was kind of a more stripped down model, then they had the Impala, and then the SS or whatever, and everything kind of went up, and a couple of the people were telling me that, we should be staying at instead of ordering different vehicles all the time, that we should probably stay into a truck line that is for people working on it. It's more repetitive than getting onto a different vehicle and then switching back or something like that. Are we staying not kind of you were saying we got two vehicles bumping up here the same age. Are we replacing this other one at next year or the year after?
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up. When we're able to spec vehicles and replace them on a regular cycle, we have that ability to spec them more similar to the ones that are around them. The last 2 or 3 trucks that we've purchased were emergency purchases because we held on too long to trucks that we should have got rid of. And then when you go into the stock truck market, then you don't get that flexibility to say, we're going with this style truck. We were heading in that direction quite a few years ago, and then when we got into kind of a situation where we had to go buy what somebody had available, we veered from that. So now we do have dissimilar trucks. This truck we're speccing right now will be very similar to the truck that we purchased, the last engine we bought, that's at Station 35. And in looks, it's very similar to the engine we purchased prior to that, that's at Station 32 in Neenah. So now that we can get back into the speccing instead of buying stock trucks and getting what they have, we can start getting back to that similarities that makes our mechanics much happier, makes our maintenance much easier because of that standardization.
And also that you mentioned that we have, both Menasha and Neenah, we have certified mechanics, and I know Pierce gives you some training and things, but I certainly would like to stay with our certified mechanics. Our mechanics aren't out fighting fires for you guys, and firefighters shouldn't be fixing trucks, and I know there's probably a level that you guys can do, but also I think there's a level that our certified mechanics can do too.
Yeah, our mechanics are firefighters, but they've taken some advanced training, but we do draw the line. They're not diesel mechanics. They're not certified diesel mechanics. They're not certified really to do much with the braking systems. That's why we still have to contract those things out, because that's not their expertise. But when it comes to preventative maintenance, dumping fluids, adjusting things, making repairs, welding, some electrical work, they save the city quite a bit of money by doing that in-house. Some of the training they've also received has been recognized by Pierce as being certifying them, I don't know if that's the right word, but recognizing them that they are talented enough to also do warranty work for Pierce. So when we have a truck that's under warranty and our guys can work on it, then Pierce pays us back at a $70 an hour rate or something for them to take care of the warranty work in-house versus us having to take it somewhere and have Pierce pay them the $70 an hour rate or whatever it is.
A couple of years ago, we changed a vendor for our police cars to have all the equipment put in. We almost lost one vehicle. We almost lost 2 other vehicles, let alone the safety for our employees. And when we start having our employees, they said some electrical work, and then we had all these electrical problems with those 2 vehicles that we had to sell. And I think sometimes we're not saving money by letting our people get too far into this stuff. And I don't know at what level, but, we do have these certified mechanics, and do we use them at all? The Neenah mechanics or the Menasha mechanics?
At the DPWs? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
We do use the Neenah ones, and I'm not really sure, and it's very limited. We carry just a small amount of money in our budget because they do bill us back for their time when they're working on an apparatus.
Okay.
Most of the capabilities that they could do for us, our guys can do. The difference might be in the equipment available to them.
Okay.
We can't lift the trucks. Neenah City Garage has a pit or a lift that they can raise the trucks if that's what's needed. So sometimes it's just a matter of we don't have the capabilities or the tools that they have to work on the bigger trucks.
Okay. And stock truck, probably around 350,000 maybe. And we're looking at what here, about 450, it's in there some, I saw it before.
So the overall budget for the new engine is 590, I believe.
Oh, 590, okay. And stock truck,
We asked about stock vehicles by both of these manufacturers, and neither one of them have anything right now. And I can't speak towards the cost of the stock truck.
okay.
Our experience, again, with stock trucks, unfortunately, we've got some experience with them. There's a little bit of reduction in the overall, the initial price of the stock trucks, but we've found that our maintenance costs are higher when we buy a stock truck versus a custom or a spec truck. And I think part of that is just in the overall oversight when the truck is being built. When we spec a truck, we're very involved with the specifications of every part of it. When the truck hits the chassis line, we go and inspect the chassis. When the truck hits the body line, we do another inspection. When it's ready for delivery, we do another final inspection. And every time I've spec'd a truck, we find things that need to be fixed or need to be addressed at each one of those spots. I think that when you buy a stock truck, nobody does that. You know what I mean? They just build a truck. There is no customer that's connected to that vehicle. It's a stock truck going out on the lot for sale. And I think that's where some of the quality drops off a little bit.
Well, I've heard the quality in the industry is, they've had issues and they're trying to address them. And I certainly hope for, $5,600,000 that we get the proper vehicle. I know last time we looked at a company down, I think it was Southern Wisconsin, I think they came in like $350,000 for a truck or something. Now, I know that, maybe you're comparing apples to oranges, I don't know that, okay? But I'm just talking here as somebody with some limited information and looking after the dollars, just always making sure that we're out there looking. I like this 2 bids that you got, that's a great thing. And to show that we're just not locked into one idea. And maybe other companies, when you go take those tours, they show you their innovation, and sometimes you go, wow, maybe that's something we should be looking at. So I appreciate your sensitivity to the community and looking out for different things like that. And there's no other company that builds the chassis and all that in one place like these two.
There are, just not in Wisconsin.
Okay, but there's other companies in the state that do build trucks.
Yes.
Okay.
Wisconsin is actually, for some reason, a crazy number of truck builders in Wisconsin, but most of them build on manufactured chassis, and then they buy those chassis in, and then they build on them.
Okay. And when do you expect those 2 prices to come in?
So we hope to have a recommendation to the Joint Finance and Personnel by the end of this month on what we found and what our truck committee has, after they go through all the specifications, make sure we're pretty close to apples. At that point, we'll make a recommendation to the Joint Finance and Personnel. That'll be the first step, and then I believe it'll go to councils after that.
Okay. And I live right on Broad Street, and you guys use the First Street corridor quite a bit. And, I brought this up a few times, and way back when Steve DeLau was here and those guys, and, we're rolling out a $600,000 rig for an EMS call, and it just seems like, man, that's just, I hear this in the public too. And don't get me wrong, whoever we get there first, a squad car, you guys, it's all good. But I don't know if we've got to that point where we could look at a smaller vehicle going out, and if the call came, they could meet the truck somewhere. Back in the day when we said that, there was 3 guys on a truck, and they said we can't have 1 guy on the rig. So then we went to 4 on a rig, and I thought, well, maybe at that time, 2 could use a smaller vehicle and 2 could use the rig, and then if there was a call, they could, of course, meet there. So just throwing that out there as far as cost reductions. The chief and I were talking one day about creative ideas and how we need to, just be more creative as technology presents itself to us. Thank you.
Alderman Sevenick?
Thank you, Mayor. I've got, I'm just going to follow up a little bit about the discussion with not just the ice and water rescue, but any type of rescue, whether it's fire or EMS type call. I think that if we don't sign an agreement with a municipality, that there should be a fee assessed to those communities. I know that at some point we had talked about that in our committee. At this point, enough's enough. The last thing, though, of course, you have someone out in the lake, we're the only choice, you got to do it, regardless. I at no point want you to ever think that we're tying your hands not to go out and do a rescue. That's very important. But I do feel that there's going to have to be some fee, and I know Alderman Taylor brought up a $10,000 fee, but I think legally we can only charge a fee that's based on what actual costs are. So could you tell me what the dark fiber is? I don't know why I don't know what that is.
Sure. Dark fiber is actually the fiber connections that go to the station, and in the budget, Menasha started charging dark fiber costs. I can't think of the name of the commission that manages, Mayor,
The Utility Commission owns the fiber network.
Okay, so when we built Station 36, they had to run, or there was a cost to getting fiber to that station, and the utilities started charging for the use of that fiber, the installation and use of that fiber. When that happened, Neenah never charged for the fiber hookups at our outlying station in Neenah. They saw that Menasha was charging, so they started charging as well for the outlying station on Breezewood in Neenah.
Who has the fiber in Neenah then?
The city does.
They do?
Yep. So we did get that reduced because I pointed out to the IT department in Neenah that they have backup servers at our station, and they needed to have fiber there as much as we did, so they reduced it by quite a bit from what they originally were going to charge us a couple of years ago. But that's really where it comes from. It's the fiber to connect the stations to the city networks.
All right. And
I don't know why they call it dark fiber, but that was the only question that somebody in Neenah asked that too.
I thought it was something different.
Oh.
So, there was one other question. Oh, yeah. I've always been told that because of the type of fire departments that we have, or fire department that we have, is that our homeowner's insurance is apparently supposed to be less. Can you quantitate that for me and tell me why? And then, like, what type of classification are we as a fire department so that that's understood? Because, again, I'm getting back at Menasha, Neenah, your taxes are high, but people have to realize there are paybacks in your community, such as your homeowner's insurance is less because of the type of fire department that you have. So in these other communities that claim they got low taxes, you're paying more on your homeowner's insurance.
I'm glad you brought that up because that is one of their goals for 2018. So right now, currently, Neenah and Menasha, our fire department is currently a Class 2 fire department. So what that means is that the classification runs from 1 to 10, 10 being the highest level on the bad end, and 1 being the best level that there is. And we are a Class 2. And out of all the fire departments in Wisconsin and in the United States, that Class 2 is probably in the top 5% of fire departments. So that is one heck of an accomplishment to be a Class 2. Our goal for next year is to look back at our last rating study that we received and make us a Class 1, which is even rarer than where we are now at Class 2. So what that means for the taxpayers when they're paying insurance is that quite often we have insurance companies call the fire department and said, hey, we have a new client or a new customer. They live here. How far is it to the nearest fire hydrant? How far is it to the nearest fire station? How long does it take to get there? So there's many factors in that ISO. It's called ISO, Insurance Service Offices rating. There's many different factors in that. And that is one of them, is how soon, how quick, how far away fire stations are, personnel, how many people can respond. That all is in that formula that they put out once they come and do the testing. So our last testing was in 2012, I believe, and then we were rated a Class 2. After Victor and I looked over those sheets, Assistant Chief Green did too, because there's several factors in that. There's the 911 system, there's how much staff, how many rigs are responding, is it a 24-hour-a-day service, what kind of fire inspections do you do, how many do you do? There's all different entities involved in this. So we took a look at the last study, and we were 9 points away from being a Class 1. And so our goal for next year is to take a look at where we're short those 9 points, and let's get those and become a Class 1. I just did some research back in June, and this is where, because I saw an article on the Firehouse website, is that the city of Columbus, Ohio just became a Class 1 fire department. And they talked about what savings that meant for their customers, for their citizens in their community. And it ranges, because it depends on the insurance company, what they recognize. But overall, their average was almost $400 a year because they were a Class 1 fire department. So again, it does range. It doesn't mean that's exactly what it's going to be. Depends on the insurance company. But having that Class 1 recognized fire department is a big deal. So that is our goal to take a look at next year and see when or how we can become that Class 1 department. And so there is a significant savings versus having that insurance company call and say, well, the nearest station is a mile away, 2 miles away, there's no hydrant, you have maybe 3 people responding with 1 truck within 5 minutes, within 10 minutes, within 12 minutes. And so all that factors into that formula. So we're in really good shape to provide that savings to our citizens' insurance, but we want to get to be the best. We want to be Class 1, and we are going to take a look at that.
They probably saw that 1977 truck. Once we get the new one, we'll be Class 1.
Alderman Grady?
Oh, thank you. Back to a couple budget questions for you guys. Your PowerPoint on page 4, you have the, I don't know if this is a typo or if I'm reading this wrong, your reduction part there of $60,000?
Yes.
Is that supposed to be 30?
30 came out of the operating, 30 came out of
Is that combined?
Oh, the insurance. So, yeah, so 30 would be from the budget part, and 30 was from the reserves, I believe, from the insurance, or health insurance, I think it was.
Oh, okay.
So, yes.
Okay. Based on your salary budget, you know, it's a little over $5 million compared to your total of, you know, 8.3 million. So, you know, salaries are over 60%, so you kind of handcuffed there on what, you know, on cuts and stuff. But I'm just curious as to that salary amount. Is that the 68 people? Is that the 63 staff plus the 5 administrative
That
people
is
in there?
all, that is all our staff. That is all 68.
So there's nothing in there planned for a couple of retirements that are coming up next year?
Correct. So
Okay.
that we will have, from what we know, we're supposed to have 2 retirements next year.
Right.
So,
Okay, then I noticed too in the mayor part of the deductions of the overtime getting hit, a deduction of $20,000. How much of, I'll say of an ouch factor is that for you guys? You think you can live with that?
yeah, like I
Based
said,
on-
we're looking at, the overtime is for, some of it is not always for when people call in sick. Matter of fact, I'm pretty proud of, if we look back and go back and look at our staff. I think last year it was an average of 1 sick day per employee last year, and I think it's either that or less this year. So we do keep track of where our overtime monies go. We had an increase this year of fire emergency overtime, which is having an incident large enough where we have to call in a crew from, that are not working. So we've had several of those at the tissue mills this year. We had a couple, recently bigger ones that were in Neenah, tissue mills, US paper. So that was almost triple what we had last year, and when we have that already. So again, we've tried and worked this budget now, and this is only our second one. We've tried to find all the deficiencies in it and make it efficient so that we can, we don't want to spend days and days and days trying to figure out our budget, because we do have several line items, but our goal was to make it efficient so that after the end of the year, with keeping track of numbers, we're pretty close to what we budget, because we categorize them in a way that we can do that. So when we talk about overtime and things like that, it is more than what we were able to have for last year. And so we always try to make it work. And if it's something where we can shift somebody on a shift to cover if there's some FMLA time taken or whatever's going on, we're very cognizant of that. And so it's 20,000 more than we were able to get for overtime last year. And so by reducing it 20,000, it is something that I think we can live with and work with.
Okay. No, it's you put together a nice presentation, so thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you. As far as inspections, I know last year it was kind of we went over it a little bit, but with carbon monoxide and smoke detectors, how did that go this year with, I think you were gonna install in units above 4 or whatever, 3, that if you saw one that was missing, you'd replace it and charge them $20 or whatever, but how did that go this?
Well, the charge was only going to be for the non-single-family, non-owner occupied. And actually, I don't know that we've had any this year. Last year, we had, I think, 6. I can't think off the top of my head of any that we've done this year in multifamily dwellings.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, a lot of single-family dwellings, but not multifamily.
So with those single-family ones, how is that? Are those the ones that it was a grant-funded project?
Right, the overwhelming majority of them came through donation and grant. We
Okay.
actually budgeted 300 last year for devices. Keel Electric and Neenah donated 1,500. We got some through the Red Cross program. So we now have a large stockpile that we probably will not have to budget for a while. But all the rigs carry the detectors on the rigs, and if they respond for a medical call or anything else, and they find out that the house does not have smoke detectors, they will install them. And it's just smoke detectors, not carbon monoxide. We don't do the
You
carbon
just do
monoxide
smoke,
detectors.
okay.
Yes.
And a question on the fire truck for a second. We kind of discussed this last year because of this was coming about this year. As far as the stock truck goes, Alderman Taylor was mentioning, have you looked into other companies that have had them for sale? You said none of them at Pierce or the other MFG or whatever the other company you're speaking of, they didn't have any, but did you look around to see comparables for the public to know that we're not just purchasing a Cadillac just to go purchase a Cadillac?
We didn't ask any other manufacturers because, again, we're back to that feeling that it's highly important that we buy single-source manufactured trucks. So that's what kind of leans us towards Seagrave and Pierce, is that they're similar companies and similar in how they build trucks. We've asked both of them. I mean, we know what we're buying. We're buying an engine. They have other trucks that are stock, but they're not like what
you're
we're
looking
buying,
for,
you know what I
yes.
mean? So they might have a ladder truck but they didn't have any engines, anything near what we were suggesting that we were looking to spec. Both manufacturers told us that when we visited. And again, I think that the best part about this is just looking at another manufacturer, looking at more than just a single manufacturer. And I can tell you that I'll be very surprised if that doesn't have an impact on the overall cost of the truck, just knowing that there is competition out there and that we're recognizing that competition.
Yeah.
So, okay.
And I'm sure people talk. Thank you.
Again, when it comes to water rescues, which Menasha is your place on the water, and, you know, we're surrounded by water on three sides, and the sun rises over it and sets over it, and again, the chief and I talked about technology, and as when it presents itself, and, you know, I was watching a piece on a drone with infrared cameras, and I think back to a night on the river where there was a call, but didn't quite know what it was, or that somebody was maybe yelling for help or something in the water, and, you know, a flashlight in a boat, or, I mean, a spotlight in a boat, and by time you guys launched the boat, the drone could have been launched and pick up the infrared signature, and boom, we're there. And when you see technology that is such an increase and such a benefit, especially to the minutes of you guys working seconds or minutes of people even losing life or, you know, making it through, I think that's great technology. And I know you guys do embrace technology, and also the different watercrafts, especially for swift. When we got 6 gates open here in the river, and we got a new kayak company, and they're not telling people, you know, stick to the north shore of the river, and when you get near that bridge, get way over, you know. So I think there's better ways for us, instead of launching maybe a different type of vehicle at the Menasha shoreline here and the Nina shoreline, and I think there's much better maneuverability and a better and faster and safer way for everybody to rescue somebody. And I know you guys put a lot of this together, and I would like to see that in the future. And I know it comes at a cost, but you know, this is what you guys do best, and I want to make sure that we have the best possible equipment for you and for the taxpayers of the city of Menasha and Neenah. So good job by your department overall, and I wish you well, Chief.
Thank you.
Director Jacobs?
Yeah, just a couple things for information for the council. As you know, that there's a formula that runs for the Neenah Menasha funding for the fire department every year, and that formula doesn't vary very much, but for 2018, Menasha did have a little bit of a reduction, about 0.25% reduction in the formula. So we did have the benefit in this budget year compared to last year, which went the other direction. So that it's a very minimal increase overall for the fire department in the city's, of Menasha's 2018 operating budget. For 2019, we already know what the population number for 2017 and for the equalized valuation. Our Menasha share for both of those two factors out of the four that come up with the formula are going a little bit more heavy on Menasha's side of the formula. So we already know going into the 2019 budget, there is a possibility that the funding formula for Menasha's share of the fire department might go up just a little bit. So if from every year, it depends on what those four factors are. And so for 2018's budget, it's a little bit easier this year than it was in 2017, but we can anticipate that the formula does have a chance of possibly going a little bit more, up a little bit higher for 2019's budget for Menasha and a little less for Neenah on the formula. A couple other things. There was, for a number of years, a number of employees or surviving spouses for employees that were under the old pension plan that was for the fire and for the police department. We can report for 2017 that there was no funding necessary at all. We had budgeted in there over $3,000 for 2017. And based on Jen's analysis, that last one individual that was that we were required to report a number in and pay for a pension in 2016 no longer occurred in 17, which means we do not have to budget that $3,300 number for 2018. Now, this was something that was a former Menasha firefighter or surviving spouse. So that is something that $3,300 did not have to be rebudgeted for 2018. So we're glad to report that. Then on the CIP plan for 2018, though, the SCBA equipment number we did not have at the time we had the original budget roll out. So it's something that we will be adding either tonight or would put on as one of the budget amendments for Monday night's adoption night for Menasha's responsibility share for the SCBA equipment of the $31,202. That's a number that we don't presently have in our CIP budget as you have had it or seen it at this time. So it's something that we will be adding that to a budget amendment then for Monday night. I believe would be the proper way to handle that because we published the budget without that number in there, and this would be an adjustment that we would need to do. Otherwise, I think that's all I had for additional comments on the fire department's budget.
Seeing no other questions for the fire department, we can, or did you have a question? Oh, Stan, you just looked at me like.
I'm looking at you because I think we've had 2 hours here now, and we should have a 5-minute recess.
So there's a motion for a 5-minute recess until 7:05. Are there any objections?
7:06.
Okay. Seeing none, we'll be at recess until 7:06. So we are 4 minutes late because of Alderman Severnick. And we'll move on to the attorney, clerk, and elections.
Ready?
Attorney Captain, yeah.
So for the 2018 request for the city attorney budget, which is on page 10, the primary change you'll notice between 2017 and 18, it's just over 2%, which really equates with salaries and benefits. That's where it comes from. Otherwise, the other requests are pretty much the same. I did, which was the same last year, in the legal line item, I had requested 15,000 and it was reduced by 5,000, so the amount is 10,000 there. And that is an estimate, of course, but it's based on outside counsel, what could be expected, and certainly we have no idea what potentially could come through for 2018, but it does include those cases where there are conflicts of interest, if there is a vacation or some other kind of conflict where I would not be able to provide the services. I try to work things out with Attorney Godleski, with the city of Neenah. You've seen him here before, and I have covered the meetings at Neenah. Sometimes it just doesn't work out with our schedules, and we have to hire someone. Same thing with prosecuting conflicts. We do try to exchange services, or maybe with the city of Appleton too. That has occurred as well, and sometimes it's just not possible. So we do try to save funds in that regard. And I don't think there are any other changes.
Does anyone have questions on the attorney budget? Alderman Zelinski.
Thank you. Where do revenues come in through the
And Director
prosecutions?
Jacobs is, oh, if you want just about prosecutions, we can definitely.
Yeah, the prosecutions, where do the revenues from that?
And the revenues, actually, they're not city attorney revenues.
Yeah.
That would be through municipal court.
So how much was the municipal, if you have a page number or something, I could look it up, but I'm guessing under revenues, but.
That'd be on page 2 of your book, and I believe that would probably be about halfway down to that page, line item 453, court penalty and costs, that we had a budget of $55,000 for 2017, and we're estimating about $55,500 for 2018.
So that's the cost?
Those are the revenues that we're getting for the penalties and the costs that we're.
And what line was that? That would be?
100-0000-453. It's like about halfway down on page 2.
453.
Yeah, it's called court penalty and costs.
55,000 was the total. And
Right,
that's
that was what the
an
budget.
estimate for next, you never know, but that's.
Correct. I mean, the actual number for 2016 was 55,843.
And it came that close. Okay. Thank you.
You're doing clerk too, right? Okay, we can move on to the clerk and the elections budgets then.
Attorney budget.
Alderman Taylor.
John, when you look at the responsibilities and things, the attorney is an advisor to the council. Is there any, on the wages or benefits or anything, or, insurances, is there any portion of that taken out for the council?
We don't have a separate line item in the council's budget for attorney fees there, and I don't know what your previous precedent has been here, if there's been other costs that were incurred on behalf of other departments. I think it maybe just had come up, the costs had come just directly out of the city attorney's budget, I believe, although I haven't been here that long, so I don't know what past practice has been previously.
Do you want to comment on that, Attorney Captain?
For other departments,
So
I don't.
we do
well,
have revenue of $12,000
Oh,
that
from
comes
the
in from the Menasha
utility.
utilities. And I believe that's the only,
Mhm.
we don't have the city attorneys, but wages apportioned any place, but we do show that revenue coming in from utilities for the time she spends there.
I was just hypothetical situation that the attorney's budget for outside legal was 10,000, and I'm wondering if the attorney's representing the city or someone, and a council member acting in the authority of an alderman needs to have outside services for an attorney, if that could be taken out of that fund, or does there have to be a separate fund? Should it say legal/counsel? Or, I mean, how are we representative if we had to be represented by somebody acting in the capacity of a alderman?
I had put a question into, or a phone call into another municipality on a question like this, and I did not get a response back in time for this meeting. I'm still hoping I will get an answer before Monday night in case we might know that answer. I'd rather not comment right now until I have heard from this other community yet.
Okay,
so.
thanks. It's just a time when we're looking at all these different line items that it'd be there. And furthermore, I'd like to say to Jennifer, the treasurer, just an outstanding job last year, start of the year. You got
Alderman
thrown
Taylor,
in deep
we're on the
water.
city attorney budget right now.
Okay, well, I just thought it was all finance. It's all this. I'll
This
come
is
back
the
to
city
that.
attorney, yes.
I can comment on.
Sure, go ahead.
I can comment on outside legal counsel. There are, in the statute, there are provisions where, as an example, we have had lawsuits that have identified an employee along with the city of Menasha. And so if a separate attorney was required for the employee, generally the interests of an employee and the city of Menasha are the same, and so I would be representing, but that is not always the case. And so fees would be used for that. We have had small claims cases. Just trying to think of some examples where perhaps we've had to hire outside counsel. If an employee receives a citation and that employee is working and there is some kind of an accident or something, and the interests of the employee may not be the same as the city of Menasha in dealing with that particular citation. And so we've had to have outside counsel, separate outside counsel represent that employee. And so the same would be for, if there were lawsuits that would specifically mention a common council member or something that could come out of this account. And if someone believes that he or she is in need of counsel, special counsel or something, then that would usually go through me. Otherwise, if there isn't enough, obviously, in the budget, which we did have occasion for 2017, I wasn't sure that there were going to be enough funds to cover it's an environmental legal opinion, and so that type of thing comes to the Common Council, and then the Common Council has to decide whether or not additional funds should be utilized for that purpose. So that's kind of how it works. And I did want to mention on the number of people, there are just the city attorney and then the administrative assistant.
Alderman Zelinski.
Thank you. So I'm looking at this number of 168,000 for the grand total. Is there, we never really discussed this last year when it went through budget. Is there a specific reason? I've read through other municipalities that they hire, I see this extra 10,000 for outside counsel, and some other municipalities do complete outside counsel. Is there a specific reason why the city of Menasha sways towards having their own city attorney and not having, say, a law firm do it for us instead? Is there
Cost. If you're looking at $250 an hour to do municipal court, anything beyond that would go from $250 up to $500 or $600 and beyond. We would never in a million years be able to afford the number of hours that we typically use for the city attorney if we hired them on an hourly basis. It would cost us significantly more than that for the number of hours that we get out of our in-house current city attorney. And what typically tends to happen is staff then does not ask for opinions and legal advice, and you end up spending even more on occasion because you get in places where you shouldn't be. So that's why I believe we should continue to have an in-house city attorney.
Just because I read somewhere that, for instance, Fox Crossing, they're well under 100,000, and I saw other municipalities throughout the state, and they have outside counsel, and just seems like a substantial amount of 168,000. So I was just wondering, what are the, I guess the benefits cost, but.
Attorney Captain would like to
Have you ever researched the
respond?
numbers?
And this community is probably about, if you look at population or something like that, there you will find, if you do a survey across the state, that some of them have in-house and some of them just do outside counsel. And, for whatever reason, the communities themselves have decided which is of benefit to them. I believe, that this community certainly would have started, because that's normally what happens, is that a community starts with outside counsel, and then all of a sudden, they end up seeing what they're spending, and then perhaps at some time they change their mind and decide to go to in-house counsel. So you will find that it is varied across the state, and certainly as the population continues to increase,
yes.
then, you would have more attorneys representing. And I believe Appleton has 3 or 4. Neenah, I believe, is looking to hire another one. They have one right now, plus they have all of their municipal court is outside counsel, and then I believe that they're looking to hire another one. So it does vary.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Sevenick.
You brought up an interesting point about municipal court. Do you go to municipal court and handle cases? Okay. Answers my question, because you're saying Neenah is hiring outside?
For municipal court.
We should be transparent here that there are, 2 months maybe out of the year that you would have someone else do that because of conflicts or other things, but the majority of the time, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it just depends.
Alderman Taylor.
Just following up on Alderman Sevenick, is there a percentage of cases you go to court for? Would that be like, 50-50 or 80-20?
As far as all of the citations that are issued, the only ones that I see are if people enter a not guilty plea. So the people that go to court and just pay the ticket, or if they pay the ticket without going to court, those I don't know how many citations that the police department actually issues, and I would have nothing to do with those. It's only if someone enters a not guilty plea. And then if they enter a not guilty plea, then it comes over to the city attorney's office for processing and prosecution.
All right, thank you. You know, if it's in Public Works this time around, there was a lot of interest in talking about refuge service, outsourcing that, which other communities have. And, you know, we don't know the numbers and, or if it's buying a fire truck from a different company. So we're up here trying to simulate things. I had a conversation with a village, and in fact, their population is bigger than ours right now, and they tell me that they spend $59,000 a year on outside services for attorneys at $155 an hour, Mayor. And it's just my basic numbers, what I heard out there. So always looking to if we do it or not, but we gotta look. That's our job. So certainly. Something interesting to possibly look at some hard numbers and see if the savings are really there or not. Thank you.
Sure.
For municipal court purposes, there wouldn't be a need for the city to hire outside counsel to do that, since that is part of the duties that I do.
Alderman Collier.
I recognize where we're going on this, and I have talked to a couple of judges and other people that are in the field, and I asked them about attorney on schedule versus outside pay. And the two Oshkosh judges, and the other was from a little bit further out, said that it would probably generate you a $200,000 negative flow because of the extra duty of going back and catching up and finding out and all the stuff that he'd have to read up on and cost. The cost savings would not be there. That's what I was told by a couple judges.
Alderman Sevenik.
Well, are we going to be covering municipal court today? Is that part of your thing, or no?
I don't
want to be
remember
out of
who.
order.
Do you do that, John, or do you want Pam to do it, or?
This is something that I've kind of, when I first got here, I was surprised on how the accounting is done by the city of Neenah for the joint municipal court. As you probably are aware of, for a number of years, that the court has been running in a deficit funding position. And Neenah is taking the position for 2018 budget to start making funding to try to reduce their deficit, but yet, so they put a $10,000 number in to try to reduce their share of the deficit in there. Both municipalities are both over $100,000 each on the whole on it for, I don't know how many years this goes back. But I talked with Finance Director Mike Easker from Neenah about this, and since I got here pretty late in the process, he agreed with me that we need to spend a little more time next year to restructure this and do it differently. But with my background, we had a municipal court that was run the same kind of structure. We've got a couple different municipalities with one person that serves as the judge that comes in a couple times a month to serve. However, the funding mechanism is that the municipalities would be funding the expenditure side of the budget, just like you do the fire department. There should be a cost share that the two municipalities share in the cost of that. Right now, they go ahead and are using some of the the revenues collections to offset against it, and then it's always in the hole. So I had presented this to Mike pretty late in the process here in October, and he agreed that, no, John, we need to spend a little more time, and we'll roll out a different way to fund the court going forward. So when I talked with the mayor on what we should do for 2018, we just decided to do pretty much status quo, which is roughly like about a $3,000, Jen, if you can help me, I think it's like roughly about a $3,000, $3,500 budget, which basically is not covering the cost of running the court, even if the way that Nina's been doing the accounting on it. So it's something that we're going to spend a little time in early 2018 to come up with a different plan for this and then present this to both councils.
Okay. Yeah, because the reason I bring this up, it was my understanding exactly what you said. And I was around when we created the municipal court. And the purpose of that was we didn't have one. A lot of people don't realize that everything went to circuit court. So, but we were sold on the fact that this would save us money. And as time went on, it's not saving us money. So I will wait for another year for you to investigate this, because I know you just came on board. But I think that this body, along with the NINA Council, needs to address this issue.
Attorney Captain had a comment about municipal court as well.
I believe that the judge is up for, or the position is up for election. Is that correct?
Yes.
This in 2018. And once that once that election occurs, any changes have to be made only after the the following term. Once that term is done, you can't make changes. Like if the city decided that it would be better off going back to the way it had previously done it, using circuit court judges. I know that the city of Appleton uses circuit court judges. And, you know, some communities do and some have their own municipal court. But I just wanted to point that out, that if there were going to be any changes to the, you know, how it's run, how it's formulated.
It has to be done this year.
Otherwise, you have to wait till the term of the, yes. No, it's a 4-year, I believe.
Alderman Taylor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too have the same questions here. I know Director Sino rang the alarm bell on this, I think last year on this budget, about the how much red ink that the court system is in. And sounds like we should really look at this if there's another judge being appointed, or where we're at with this, and different adjustments maybe be made, or what other options we have. So it's something I think should take a look at real soon. Thank you.
Alderman Collier?
I'm pretty sure one of the reasons the municipal court was set up for Nina Menasha has a lot to do with travel time, and Appleton does their in a circuit court because it's right in their city. Now, if you have to have 4 or 5 officers go down to Oshkosh and maybe wait to get in on that circuit court in a time, and you might be paying those officers half a day's pay, 8 of them, maybe on off time, and that would come in your reasoning why you might be able to afford to.
Go ahead.
Okay, and to afford not to go to the court system in Oshkosh because of the other costs that would cost you through the police department budget and other factors, and that's maybe why you did it that way.
Yeah.
Okay. Can move on to the clerk and the elections then at this point?
For the clerk budget, again, you will probably notice that the change that, or the increase is due to salaries and benefits. And again, it's just over 2%.
Just do elections at the same time, too?
And the elections, this one, of course, does fluctuate based on the number of elections that will be held. And so, as an example, in 2016, because of the presidential election, it was pretty high. This year, 2017, there were less elections, and there are extra ones for 2018, including the governor. And so that will be the cause of some additional salary and wages for the extra people. There, and I'm trying to think, the clerk did put in some extra funds to attempt to start accumulating monies for a spare voting machine, which is approximately $4,300, and I believe that amount was reduced. And so at some point, we will likely want to address that. What would happen now is if, since there isn't a spare machine, a call would go out to the county to attempt to utilize their spare machines. Do they have two, I believe? One, okay. I couldn't remember if it was one or two, and that's for the whole county. So if one was out that's in Winnebago County, then we would ask to use theirs. But right now, we don't have a spare machine.
Alderman Sevenick.
Could you tell me what the building rental is?
That is for the dog club. There's a
So in
rental.
order to hold, so we can't find another place to hold it without,
A year or two back,
I know.
we did it at Heckrod.
Yes.
And Heckrod requested that we use the money that we were donating to Heckrod to rent this other facility because it interfered with their programming. So it was basically a wash that we were either paying Heckrod or we were paying the dog club. Alderman Nichols?
Thank you. Back to the voting equipment, could you tell us what line that is, please? And how much was originally budgeted?
I don't think I took any of it out.
Specialized equipment, I believe that there was 5,000, and that was reduced by 2,500.
Thank you. And how much does the piece of equipment cost?
It's about $8,000, so it was something to put money into, a budget for a few years, and over the course of a few years, then there would be enough to purchase a spare machine. So it will just take an extra year or whatever it is,
Would this
unless something
be-
else.
Yeah, would this be a voting machine that is identical to the ones we have
Correct,
now?
correct.
How often are those machines usually replaced, meaning brand new?
And these are
equipment?
brand new?
Yeah.
Last year,
2016 is when they were purchased.
2016,
And they're supposed to be good for 10 years.
How long
10
were the
years?
others, though?
Okay, thank you.
The last ones were how long?
The last ones were 20 years old.
The old ones were nearly 20 years old before we replaced them.
Yeah.
there's the old clever one.
You're dating yourself, Stan. Any other discussion on clerks and elections? Okay, We'll move on to administrative services. John, you're up.
I think we're batting cleanup with the budget book. My plan is to not go through the order that they're listed on the agenda, but to kind of go through them in page number order so we don't have to keep flipping around. I think everybody would appreciate this at this point. The first area would be the revenues area, just to kind of, and Jen, if you can chime in on, because you worked on this section pretty diligently, so. As you know that we had some good news about a month ago from the Department of Transportation that our highway aid number for 2018 went up a little over $70,000, so that was good news right off the bat on the funding side of things for our operating budget for 2018. And with the shared revenue number, it's coming down about $1,000, so it's a net gain of roughly about $72,000 that we're getting more from the state, from state aids this year in total. The recycling grant is staying fixed at where it is, and then the other revenue sources coming from the state are staying flat. Pardon? Oh, I'm just looking at page 1. Page 1, 2, and 3 are the revenue section of the general fund where we've got the revenues listed. However, on the licenses and permits revenues, in 2016, the licenses and permits were at $451,000, and we had budgeted $474,000 for 2017. We're only estimating about $419,000. So during the calendar year 2016 is when a lot of the permits and a lot of the building activity had occurred. That's why, if you remember, a few months ago we had our valuation, or equalized valuation, come through, which was much greater than it had been in previous years. So what's happening now is on page 1 and then continuing on page 2 is that the licenses and permits areas that we have budgeted for, we're budgeting based on what actual activities coming through in 2017. So the numbers that were there for in the actual column for 2016 are, like, for instance, if you look at line item 422.01 for building, we had an actual number of $65,000 in 2016 actual. We budgeted $72,000 thinking that was going to continue and hold at that level. However, we're only estimating about $54,000 for revenue for 2017 year-end projection, and then we're budgeting $55,000. So we're being very consistent going through all of the building, electrical, plumbing, heating areas, that all the revenue fees, the amount of activity, building activity, is not occurring at the same level it was in 2016. So therefore, we can project that our valuation growth for the community will be much less than the 2.6% that we had in new net construction growth that occurred for this year. So next year, we're anticipating it being much less because these revenues are reflecting the lower level of activity. So we're budgeting appropriately. We're not keeping those numbers at the same budget level for 2017. So a lot of the numbers for 2018 are based on where our year-to-date projection numbers are going to be for 2017. And then on the fines and forfeitures and penalty area, which is on page 2, we kind of already mentioned that, which is like line items 451, 453, 454. There again, there's really not much of a change impact between the 2017 budget and 2018 budget. Those are staying pretty flat. And public charges for services, we are not proposing any major increases of any fees for the structure for 2018 year at this point. So therefore, in the areas that fall in the 461 area, the fee level is going to be pretty similar to what it was. The 18 budget proposed is going to be very similar to the 2017 adjusted budget column as it had been presented a year ago to you. And then the other intergovernmental charges line item, that is staying relatively flat also, and that runs, I believe, in the 481 area, which starts on page 2 and runs into page 3. So there again, there isn't much change. So basically, the major impacts to the revenue side in the main general operating budget is that we've got transportation, or the transportation aid number went up over $70,000. The shared revenue number went down about $1,000. However, we are reflecting the lesser activity in building permits, electrical permits, and things that are happening in the inspection area. So we're reflecting that in there so that our overall total revenue budget, along with the proposed tax levy increase, would be going up to 2.51%, which would bring us to the $17.5 million number that you see proposed at the bottom of page 3. Are there any questions on revenues?
Alderman Sevenick.
What is the category, all others? It was zeroed in 16, 17, and then it's...
This is something that I prefer to have in there for a fund balance number, so it shows you what the fund balance is that we are applying. Technically, in the 2017 budget, and I didn't ask Jen to add the number in there to the 2017 column, but when you typically propose a budget and show all the line items, my preference is to show, especially for the general fund, that you need to show a balanced budget so that the 2000 revenue number for the general fund for revenues and for expenditures should match. When you publish the budget hearing notice in the newspaper, I used the same presentation that was used the previous year. Since I didn't have a lot of time to recreate the whole wheel from that, but in the accounting system, just to show for our auditors that there is a balanced budget, that the difference in the revenues versus the expenditures is applied fund balance, and that's customary that most communities do that, especially if you know you have a little bit of...
I got her. We got her.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Cut me off anytime. I'm fine with that.
John does like his numbers.
Okay, then moving on to the expenditure areas that our
Alderman
team...
Taylor, I think, had a
I'm
question
sorry.
as well.
Just a quick question on page 2. I think it was under fire permits, and I think that's the recreational fire permit.
Jen, can you comment on that?
$10,000, is that correct? I had it marked here now.
That's some quick question.
Wait, which is...
The question was quick.
Which line number are you looking at?
It's
Are
on
you
page 1,
harassing me?
actually. It's 422-0800.
422.
Did we find it?
Yes, page 1,
Page 1.
right, kind of, well, about 2/3 of the way down.
Recreational fire.
Yep.
10,800. Is that what we collect, permits?
Yes.
Okay. And, I've had complaints about that through the years. Alderman Sevenick and I brought that ordinance forward. And, you buy a boat permit, you get to use a boat landing. Buy a swimming pool pass, you get to use a swimming pool pass. You want a campfire in your backyard, you got to pay a yearly permit. What do you get for it? So it's one of those things that I think it's an extra tax on people that, be like taxing if you got a swing set in the backyard, it costs you $20. You got a trampoline, it costs you $20. You got a fire pit. There's no inspection or anything on those fire pits. So I don't see any service the city's using up for those. And the question is not towards you, it's towards this body that here we're charging people for something in their backyard, and I could see maybe the one time so it goes on the record or something, but each year to charge this fee, I think is just an extra tax on people. And like I said, what's next? A swing set tax or other pool tax. So it's just a fee that I think just keeps happening that shouldn't. Thank you.
Just commenting that there is a permit fee for a pool. So,
Well, I know that.
Should we move along?
Yep.
Okay. Next page, 19. We'll start focusing on the expenditures for our joint department here. This would be for finance and controller here. And basically, it's a very small dollar amount reduction in there. The only item that we're requesting for office furnishings, which is line item 3019, is for 2 lateral file cabinets. When I first got here, I was scrounging around looking for a little more storage space and was kind of told with the building move and the project and stuff, John put that, I was kind of advised, put that in the 2018 budget request. So that's what I'm doing. But that'd be something that'd be shared for a couple of our employees in our department. Moving on to page 22, personnel, human resources area. There again, it's about a $2,000 reduction from the previous year's budget. So as I work with our team, we're just trying to fine tune what things have been spent in the past. And one item for 3016 for promotional, there we've reduced the budget a little bit from $7,000 down to $5,000 from promotional materials for personnel, things there. If there are any other questions, I'll just keep moving along.
This is on the human resource side. Do we share some of that with the utility?
We do. Part of Candy's time is spent over at the Menasha Utilities, which we do bill based on the actual time. It's not on a percentage basis, it's based on actual time there. But you are spending on average 1 day, the allocation was that they were approving 1 day a week, that we would be billing them based on her time spent there to managing because I guess Melanie had done it some years ago, and now with Candy coming on board, now that her assistance is helpful over there to get all of their hiring and some of their onboarding and things over there done for the utilities, just like it is for the city. But we try to do it 1 day a week. Sometimes it happens once every other week.
And we're being reimbursed for that 1 day a week?
We are reimbursed based on her actual time spent there.
Okay.
So if there's 1 week that she misses, then the utilities does not get billed.
Okay. And then to the end of my last question, that $10,000 for that permit, does that just go back into the fund for whatever?
It goes back into the
General.
black hole. Yes.
Thanks.
Of the city, yes. Are there any other questions? Okay. Moving on to page 25 for the assessor. The contract does come up for 2018, I believe, in July or August for renewal. So that's something that we will be presenting to the council in the next, sometime in early 2018 for a renewal contract for accurate appraisals for looking to see going up for bid. Associated appraisals?
At the end of July.
Okay, so we still have them on board for the next year. What they did for work during 2017 is that when I met with them originally, when I first got here, they told me that they typically try to go around to try to divvy up the city in 4 different sections. So during the year 2017, they tried to do a reevaluation for the parcels that lie within Calumet County. So some of the valuation changes did impact those that live in Calumet County, including residential businesses. And then now for the next couple of years going forward, they will do a relook at neighborhood by neighborhood in parcels in Winnebago County. So for the next couple of years, if they remain on, they will end up starting the process in 2018. And it'll probably take them a couple years to go through that. They don't do like a full-blown walk through every every 4 years, but they'll actually do a reevaluation, identifying if there are parcels that might be, or neighborhoods that need to be readjusted. Okay, if there are any other questions, I'll keep moving on. The next page would be page 157. And if you will look on your desk, I put a calendar on your desk that has the years 2018, 2019, 2020. When I first got here to the city, someone had brought to my attention that there is a we all receive pay on a biweekly basis here at the city. And that at some point there will be a 27th pay period that will come up and that we will need to fund and we will need to get prepared for so that we can fund that when that year happens. And the library was the one that really put this nice chart together. I don't know, they're very well organized, obviously. You've heard them tonight already. But 2020 is the year that that 27th pay period happens. What that means is that in that year, on December 31st of 2020, the 27th pay period will happen, and that will be an additional $300,000 that the city will need to have budgeted somehow or have funded. Typically what happens is at the end of the accounting year, most municipalities will go ahead and budget for 1 extra day every year, and then on a leap year you will budget for 2 days, because typically the pay periods are based on a 364-day year, and you have 365 days in normal years. Leap years you have 366. So what happens is that when you have every 11 years roughly, you have this 27th pay period comes up, we need to be aware and try to find a way to finance this, and then we have to worry about expenditure restraint, because we will run up against that very quickly in that 1 year. So my proposal was for the 2017 budget and for the 2018 budget, and for any leftover savings that might be realized at the end of the 2017 audit, is to go ahead and bank and start funding that, so that when we get to 2020, we do not have to come up with an additional $300,000 in the operating budget to cover that when that happens. Otherwise, you're going to have to tell every employee, you're going to work for 2 weeks, but we won't give you anything in your paycheck. So I'm just bringing it to your attention now that my proposal was to fund roughly the equivalent of about 1/10 of that 300, or roughly about $35,000 of that 300 in the 2018 budget year. If any savings materialize after the end of the 2017 audit season, when Jen and I are done with the auditors from Schenck, we would bring a proposal to you and saying, okay, what would you like to do with any excess budget savings that might have been over and above what the departments had put in the budget here, saying for the 2017 year-end projection. We'll bring that back to you for what you want to do with that, if you'd like to apply that towards the 2019 budget year, or if you want to bank that knowing that you've got this coming in about 3 years from now.
Alderman Sevenick.
Let future councils deal with it. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm very open and transparent with everything, and I look for things that might be looming. I do have good news to share with you a little bit later on tonight in my presentation when Patrick and I pull that up. But at least I'm bringing kind of the not so good news first, and then I'll butter you up at the very end.
Well,
That's my plan.
what I would suggest is that we create a special account fund that line items this and then has a very detailed explanation in the budget, because you could be gone in 2 years, or you know what I'm saying, the way things have been going for us with staffing, and all of a sudden we're going to have
It's a kick in the ass.
well, it is in a way. I mean, John knows what I'm talking about. And that way, even future councils will have a better understanding of that. I want it to be very, like you said, open, so transparent.
Right. Actually, my team has got me handcuffed to my chair right now, so I can't go anywhere, I don't think. So, okay, if there are any other questions on that, the next area would be page 205, would be the debt service fund. And this needs a little, and now we'll have a PowerPoint slide for this also, but I thought I'd at least bring it to you attention of what we have in here, which is a little bit different. We have the normal on the line item, which says principal payments for line item 6101, which is the first line on that page. You have the principal payment per the existing schedule, which is the $3.1 million number in there. And then based on the third line of that detail, the $19,191, that's based on the principal payments on the new borrowing issue that we're going to do yet this year, which we will bring to you probably in 2 or 4 weeks of the borrowing for roughly about $750,000. That's the amount we need to borrow for the projects that actually occurred during 2017 calendar year. So that would be the initial payment that would be due for just the interest in 2018 with the first principal in 2019. But the line item that I want to bring to your attention, the second line there, the payoff of the state trust fund loans and refinancing for $4.7 million. When I first got here, and talked with Jennifer and with the mayor and with David Buck, it was brought to my attention that the Lake Park Villas, you have got roughly $4.7 million that you did some refinancing at the end of 2016 going into 2017, that there were these large balloon payments out in 4, 5, 6 years out, and then when you refinanced it, everything was restructured that those balloon payments were restructured so that the payments were equal payments for the next 3 years, for 2018, 19, and 20. That's $1.2 million annually each year, which we cannot afford on a cash flow basis in the debt service fund. So my proposal is, after I talk with the mayor and with Jennifer, is that we've contacted the state trust fund loan program. They'd be willing to work with us on restructuring those payments so they're not all fixed over the next 3 years. We've got some, when that steam plant money the debt starts falling off, we've got some window of opportunity to stretch out the payment schedule at least out to 2025. So that with not having these balloon payments in 2021, we can stretch these out a little longer, which would make it more affordable, especially for our long-term CIP program. So that's my plan to bring this. You will see this all again sometime probably in the first or second quarter of next year, but I wanted to at least bring it to your attention that if you see that debt service fund of why is that amount going up over $4 million in there, that's the reason. We need to restructure. It's basically for the Lake Park Villas, which have these huge payments on there, which are not going to be cash flowing. You're not selling the lots on what the original projection was when you first got into the arrangement. So it's something we're going to restructure it and make it so that the whole debt service fund and the CIP program long-term can be affordable. Any questions on that? Okay. The last area in the book that we want to bring to your attention is page 247, where we've got the IT budget at the very end of the book. And I handed out tonight also a summary. I know that my predecessor had shown you what a 5-year trend was for past years for the IT budget. And basically, we do this on an allocation basis, that it's a separate standalone fund. The allocation are done across the departments based on... Oh, sure. Yep.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, it's a that my predecessor did a really good job on showing this and the trend. And if you look at the top line, the IT budget global, you can see back in 2014 we were at a $420,000 that was spread across the different departments, and that now in 2017's budget this year it was funded at $388,540, and in 2018, after I reviewed everything with Patrick and talked with Paul, who is on here usually 1 day a week assisting Patrick in the IT budget area, that we're only looking at a $1,300 increase, which is a 0.34% increase for 2018's budget. But that we're at a much lower level than we had been back in 2014, 2015, when you had an IT budget over $400,000. And then the detail that followed behind there just was the breakout, so all the departments were aware of how we came up with the computation for the amounts that actually ended up in their budgets. Most items are global, which are distributed based on a predetermined formula from some years ago. There are specific things like for police and for other departments that are specific just to the department, so then they get that additional added on allocation. Are there any questions on IT?
Thank you. As far as IT goes, are we looking to consolidate some of this with moving in with the district? Has anything been, that was one of the main pushes to move over here, that we're going to start combining our IT and working off each other. Has any of that happened yet, or do we see it happening soon?
I personally haven't talked to anyone with the school district yet. They probably didn't want to bombard me knowing that we had budget going forward here, that I'd try to get my hands wrapped around that. I have heard it from a couple different individuals in our organization right now about that and looking into possibilities about that. But I have not, in the last 3 months, have not reached out to them looking to talk about that, but that's something probably in early 2018 that I can, and Patrick, and we can determine, if there are some areas of cost savings there. I don't know, the mayor maybe have a little more input on that before I got here.
We did look at that a little bit. It doesn't seem that there are a lot of overlapping areas. We did share some space with them and other things, but it's something we want to look at throughout all the departments. Are there ways that we can cooperate? And what it might end up being is not necessarily a cost savings, but better service levels for everyone when we can work together on different things. So I wouldn't expect to see anything drastic on these budgets. I mean, we're very lean compared to, if you look at Neenah or others, for our IT compared to other similar sized cities. We do this on a shoestring.
And I can see that from some of our meetings where things go haywire. We at the point for wages that we need to hire someone more to part-time or something to help assist with this contraption that seems to not work half the time.
It's a little bit of growing pains right now, but we'll definitely be looking at different things. I would hope that that Patrick will not need to be here in the future, or we could possibly have an intern to help us do this type of work in the future as well. Patrick has a lot more skills than sitting at these meetings watching my iPad not work. So,
should we look into that now? Or is that?
I think Patrick and I have talked about that. Previously, I think you had 3 full, Patrick, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there were 3 full-time employees in the IT area some years ago, and now it's down to 1 full-time and just 1 intern. We're looking at, and we know that the 1 intern we have right now is not using the full amount of hours that we have budgeted for. So we are actually looking, and we've been talking about adding a 2nd intern to fill the remaining 1 day a week of hours that are available in the budget.
Just to correct on the full-time status, we had 2 full-time. We had the IT manager, and we had myself, which is the IT supervisor. Managing and supervising is not relative to people, it's relative to the network, just so people are aware of that title. We did have a half-time intern, and we had about maybe $10,000 in outside services for some very specialty things. Over the past few years, we've had a lot of things happen within the city and within this department due to losses and new administrative services directors, and a lot of things changed. Currently, we now have a consultant that we, on average, employ about 1 day a week. Obviously, that's at a much higher rate of pay for his hourly rate as a consultant versus my salary and benefits, or an intern making, very little money. Currently, I'm the only full-time person. The consultant is here the 1 day a week, and my intern, on average, is one and 0.6 days. You know, he's not even here 2 full days, and we've budgeted for 2.5 days. And we also didn't start the intern, so we have money available in our intern budget, and I'm hoping to add a second intern at a minimum. If I was able to make the decision myself, I would rather have that manager position filled again. I think that would benefit the city. However, that is a funding issue.
So it's actually something that Patrick and I were planning on working on here with, I mean, after I've gotten here now 3 months and
Yeah.
looking for it to next year. So I think we probably will have a recommendation for 2019's budget.
Okay, well, thank you.
Alderman Severnik.
Well, I noticed in the IT department budget that the FTEs is up a half. So is that representing the additional intern you're talking about, or that's what you currently have?
The actual 2017 column probably should have shown a half intern there already.
Okay,
So
that
there's
makes
no,
more
it's no
sense.
change. The funding isn't different
Okay.
for both years.
And then my, kind of the interpersonal question, but it relates, is Patrick being paid anything additional for being here?
No, Patrick is a salaried position.
I realize that. Yeah, because he is, well, I think this body or the mayor or something, we need to do something additional because since you've moved to this building, you're taking this particular individual and making him spend an extra 2-3 hours in these meetings, which he didn't have before, and he's being paid the same salary. I just think that somehow we need to look at either helping him with the intern or compensating him in some manner. So, I don't know, I mean, obviously, I'm letting his bosses know that, and that's the feeling, I think, of, I'm seeing people shake their heads here of this body, so I hope you could follow through on that. Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay. If there are any other questions, then Patrick, if you want to pull up the PowerPoint. As Patrick is doing that, I kind of put together a little summary. I think you've all got a copy. I think Debbie even handed out a copy. It's the same PowerPoint that I handed out a week ago. Hasn't changed. But in addition to that, I handed out a very large piece of paper. This is in response to when I talked with Council President Severnik today. We kind of talked about with what, and I know the mayor's even chimed in with me this week with the newspaper. They are trying to show how heavy spending the different municipalities are. So what I thought it's to show a fair representation, and this would be something is, once we get done with the adoption of the budget next week, Monday, assuming that all goes through on November 20th, we'll be including more pages in the final bound document. You used to have a budget document that had, was bound with all the changes afterwards. My plan is that our staff is already aware of my request that for the December 4th meeting, you'd have the final book with a couple more of these things inbound in there. But in this long sheet here, what the newspaper was trying to say is that if you look at I've got every single fund here that you've now reviewed. You've heard from all the different departments. The grand total for the 2018 budget column is a $44.6 million total spending authorization that was presented to you and that we published. Now, obviously, we have a couple little adjustments that we'll be making to that. But you've had the $5,000 for the library. Of course, that's not in here. And anything else that we would present or that would get adopted next Monday night. But when you compare that to the previous year, which was at $35.7 million, that's an $8.9 million increase, which is almost 25% increase. That's unfair to show that, and that's the way the newspaper kind of spinning the story out there, saying all the spending's out of control, et cetera, et cetera. So what I did is I showed the two line items that I knew about, Jen knew about, the mayor knew about, that when we put the budget together here a couple weeks ago to present it to you for review, is that there are one-shot items in there in the 2018 budget that weren't there the previous year. So it's not a fair comparison. So if you back out the debt refinancing amount for that debt piece for the $4.7 million, which when you refinance it, it shows up paying off all the principal, and then you have debt to replace it with, but it shows as an expenditure, which we have to budget for. So if you back that number out, and then you back out there are 4 developer projects that David talked about in his presentation that are developer. They're funded by special assessments. However, the city would need to pay for those, and then you collect the money over time. But if you back those up, because we don't know if any of them are going to happen, back that 2.5 million out, then you're down to a number that's 37.4 million. When you compare it to the previous year, you're only looking at a $1.6 million increase, which is 4.6%. And then when you look at all the different funds that were impacting that, the general fund, the main operating fund of the city, $428,000, that's only a 2.51% increase. And then you look at some of the special revenue funds, that there are a couple of them that are a little over a 10% increase. You've got some of the TIF district ones, which are amounts with different projects that Director Buck had talked about previously. You've got the redevelopment authority. You've got the sewerage treatment utility and the stormwater utility for $246,000, which in joint combination is 6.7% increase. You get up to that 1.6 million. So when you look at the total spending level that the newspaper is trying to tell the story, that's not the true story. This is the true story, because they're separate time items in the 2018 budget that weren't there in previous years. So this is the more fair representation to share with you tonight before you adopt the budget next Monday night, and before we have any of the citizens that might want to comment next Monday night. So I just wanted to bring this to your attention first, that this is the overall spending package that you've heard about, you've read about, and seen for the last couple weeks from all the different departments. Other than that, I'll just quick jump into the summary comments, just kind of a overview of the total overall 2018 budget, and bring attention some of the important points that you should be aware of and that the citizens can watch when they watch the TV on this. If you go to the next slide, Patrick. Oh,
you have it.
I have it. Okay. Do you want to do it?
It's been a long day, hasn't it?
It has been. It might be a little hard to see up on the screen there, but you've got a printed version of this out with just a couple pages. First off, one of the goals that staff and the mayor, when we put the budget out for the recommendation to you, was that to continue to show a spending plan, a recommendation plan that showed that the city is continuing to present a operating budget and an equalized tax rate that would continue to fall each year based on the growth that was occurring. So you can see that back in 3 years ago, when the 2015 budget was adopted, that there was an equalized rate which is based on full value, 100% full value, at $10.32. Then it fell to about a penny the year after that. Then it fell about 5 cents after that. And for this year, it's falling another 11 cents. So the equalized rate would be at $10.16. For the assessed tax rate for Winnebago County, you can see there, then this is the amount that will actually show up on the tax bills, is how the tax bill is calculated for the city's share of the tax levy for the city of Menasha. You can see there that there's a slight increase each year, but that the proposed rate from $10.57 going up to the proposed rate of $10.82, that's about a 25-cent increase, which is a 2.36% increase. That is still relatively about the same index that the CPI index went up, which is a little over 2% for the last 12 months that we got from the Department of Revenue a couple weeks ago. And that's very similar in the amount of the change from that the 2017 budget was adopted, when that rate went up 23 cents, which is a 2.24% increase. The Calumet County side of the rate, I don't have that calculated yet for 2018 because there was the revaluation that had occurred, but there's also the underlying portion with the Waverly Sanitary District that kind of factors into the rate. So that amount, I need to kind of work with Jen on that a little bit, maybe yet in the next day or two before Monday. And I know that the mayor and I and City Attorney Captain have to discuss that also, because we got a letter from Waverly Sanitary District, but yet we have some questions on that. So that we may or may not have that on for conversation for, not on Monday, but maybe in a couple weeks yet, possibly, but it does have a little impact on what the tax rate is here for Calumet County for the city of Menasha. Then going to the next slide, this is actually the levy, the actual levy that you will be adopting next Monday night. That the far right-hand column shows that the levy that is proposed is the $10,212,008, which is a $293,000 increase from the previous year, which is a 2.96% increase, less than 3%, and that's very similar to the rate in the levy that had occurred a year ago. Now, the difference between last year and this year is a year ago, the levy was required to go up above the maximum level that the state allowed. So what you would use the exception for the fire department. There's a state law that allows you to increase it based on the increase on the fire department's budget, the joint fire district. So therefore, you were able to increase that to balance your budget by the additional $39,406 that was necessary. This year, however, we are under the limit. The limit that the state allowed us to go with the tax levy was up based on our growth of the 2.6% that we were allowed to do this year. The limit would have been $10,276,634. We're about $64,000 under that levy limit right now. Now, what happens is the state allows you to carry forward that levy capacity into a future year. So if no other changes are used for any additions to the budget, and if other funding sources are found other than the tax levy to possibly change that $64,626 will carry forward to next year if we need it. So we don't have to use it and we don't lose it, but it's available next year. It will carry forward as available to us if we need to, especially if our growth does not turn out at the limit, and we are likely not to have the growth next year that we had this year. On the assessed valuation, you can kind of just see there that we had a huge boom in the TIF districts area, which caused that the valuation for the assessed valuation for the city went up almost $33 million, which is a 3.22% increase. However, when you look at what the levy is based off of, it's not including the TIF districts. The portion that is helpful to the budget is going up to $9.5 million, so that the assessed valuation base that we're using is $948 million, not the $1,054,407,500 number. So that we had 1.2% growth in the non-TIF area, and this is the valuation base that's used to determine the levy and the tax rate that will be adopted. On the next page, not only are there limits from the state on the tax levy itself, but there is on the spending limit that the general fund and the main operating budget can go up. For the 2018 budget, in what's highlighted in yellow near the bottom in the lower right corner, our budget went, the limit went up we went up $450,000, which was a 2.58% increase over the previous year's budget. However, the limit that the state allowed us to go up based on our growth was 3.7%. So what this means is that we could have gone up another $194,000 in our operating budget, and that would have been the base then to use towards the 2019 budget. So we actually are, I don't want to say hurting ourselves, but this limit here, $194,000 that we're leaving off the table, this is not usable as the base. This does not carry forward to next year. The tax levy unused does carry forward. The spending limit will be lost. And if we make adjustments to the budget, this will be a little bit lower, but still we could have gone up 3.7%. But just remember, a year ago, that you could have only gone up based on growth in the city, 1.9%. You were at 1.73%. So you were just under it by a little bit, but not by much. So I don't know, I can't look into a crystal ball what that limit will be for next year, but we had it much easier this year at a 3.7% spending limit than the 1.9 we had a year ago. And then, just as a nutshell, to kind of recap the couple different areas that you should be aware of before you adopt the budget on Monday night, that the general fund expenditures that have been proposed to you is at $17,526,411. Of that number, about 55% of that is wages and fringe benefits, which is $9.6 million, which means all the other expenditures for supplies, materials, contracted services, capital outlay in the general fund accounts to $7.9 million, which is 45% of the overall budget. Now, this is just for the general fund. And then on the next slide is the general obligation debt. That at the end of 2015, the city had $34.8 million of general obligation debt outstanding, and now over the last couple of years, that number has been going down, which means that you're paying off more debt each year than you are taking on for borrowing for new projects. So that for 2016, that number dropped to $33.5 million. We're projecting right now for 2017, it will fall to $32.6 million, which includes the $750,000 that we need to borrow yet this year to pay for some of the capital projects that occurred. And then for 2018, this is where there's two different thoughts there. The first off is that if we do not do the $2.5 million borrowing for those 4 developer projects, and we just do it based on the projects that we have in the CIP plan, which you've kind of seen already, and we'll probably recap at the very end here, with what we had handed out again tonight, that debt level would drop to $30.1 million. However, if we do include the $2.5 million in there, that would mean that the general obligation debt would be at $32.7 million, which is just slightly higher than it was at the end of 2017. And this does not include the additional $31,000 for the SCBA for the fire department, which is not included in this number because we didn't have that when we put the budget together originally. But we'll have to do as a budget adjustment. I don't know, Mayor, if there's something else you wanted to comment on,
Got it.
that? Okay. And then for the couple pieces of good news, if you remember the steam plant debt that's been out there for a number of years now, this is the tax levy portion that has to be contributed to pay that debt off, which is roughly almost $1.5 million annually. What that means, it's about $1.54 on your tax rate. So if you look at our existing proposed tax rate of $10.82, subtract off the $1.54 from that, you do get very close to just a little above the $9 level, which would be much more in line with the Appleton, Menasha's, or Nina's of the surrounding communities here with full-service city communities. So we've got that on there as a responsibility for the next number of years. And starting in 2028, that payment of $1.5 million drops off to the level, and these are fixed annual payments, so it's not going up or going down. This is a fixed payment that we just have to keep budgeting for each year. By 2028, that number drops all the way down to $284,000, and then it drops off completely by 2030. So if we just wait a few years, so when we do structuring out for 20-year debt borrowing, these are kind of the targets so that we know that we've got this large capacity out there for large chunks that will be occurring because of the steam plant debt eventually falling off, and knowing that the tax rate will drop at some point in time substantially to be more in line with the other communities. And then on my last slide, to end it with the TIF districts, as you recall, when we shared this information with you a couple months ago, we do have 11 TIF districts in the city, and that at the end of the 2017 calendar year, you have TIF district number 3, which will be required to be closed. We could have closed at the end of 2016, but we asked for a 1-year extension for another year. So what this means is that you'll have about $9,400 that will be added to the tax levy automatically annually starting in the 2019 budget year. But the better news is for TIF districts 5 and 6. Those are, right now, would be required to close at the end of 2021, which means that starting with budget year 2023, which is just a couple years away, we already will be having $275,000 of annual tax levy due to the growth in those two TIF districts. So this is kind of the good news we've got coming down the pipeline. So when we do the borrowing for any capital projects that are beyond 10 years or out to a 20-year period of time, that we can structure it accordingly so we can afford all these different pieces, knowing we've got additional tax levy dollars coming in without increasing the tax rate, and knowing that you've got future debt that will be falling off, that we can kind of fill in the gap. Are there any questions?
Alderman Sevenick.
How much benefit tax rate are we getting off of this building?
Off of which bill?
This one?
Oh, the building?
Mm-hmm.
Well, for one thing, to build what you have here, you're paying roughly about $70,000 in rent, and part of that is funded through the health department. And with it being funded through the health department, you're getting it applied towards some of the grants. Mm-hmm. So you've got, I don't remember how much is in the health department budget, but I mean, for $50,000 maybe of the remaining share that's not in the health department area, I mean, the amount of debt you would have had to absorb to build what you have here, to accommodate all of us, I mean, you'd be paying easily hundreds of thousands of dollars annually for debt service, which you do not have, and you don't have to pay interest on it. And
Right.
it's a fixed amount, and this includes cleaning costs in addition to the rent.
We also have an empty building over there too, though.
Do you want to move on to the CIP, John?
Yes. This is kind of the laundry list of which you had previously in a couple different pieces. You had it originally in a little binder that we handed out for the very first budget workshop a couple weeks ago, and then now you've had the discussion from all the different departments of all the different pieces that feed into this. So this is kind of the CIP budget for 2018 as it stands right now. And if you want to flip to the very back page, I guess the funding mechanism is what should be just brought to your attention, that right now you have roughly about a $7.6 million CIP budget with all the different projects listed that are here. Some of them have funding sources that are not just borrowing. Some of them are funded through the operating budget of the general fund, like some of the street projects. You've got some of them that are funded through the sewer utility, some funded through the stormwater utility, some through the street equipment fund, or the Public Works Facilities Fund. Some of them are paid for by TIF number 4 and then by TIF number 12. So you've got multiple sources there to fund your $7.6 million proposed CIP budget package for 2018. And of that state trust fund loan borrowing amount on there, remember that 2.5 million of that is for those 4 developer projects. So if you back those out, the borrowing level is roughly about $2,160,000 of that. And we are paying off about $3.1 million in principal next year in the budget. So there again, we are paying off more debt than we are taking on for projects. And this does include the first phase of the $1,550,000 for phase 1 of the Public Works facility. And I know we have some of the managers and department heads from, if there's anything else in the CIP list that you have questions of. Otherwise, on that very back page, there were also projects that were brought to my attention that didn't hit my desk as quick as I either missed them or got a lot of the information. All these different pieces coming at me all at one time, and so I do admit that there were roughly about $254,000 worth of some projects that have been budgeted for multiple years that you've included in the budget that just didn't happen. Like, for instance, I know when I talked to Chief Stika, he had said that, well, John, the garage door replacements, we put that in the budget every year. And he says, it gets taken out. And he's like, well, at the year that the doors actually fall off, that's the year that we'll just actually do them. So we just wanted to let you know that there is a secondary list of other projects that could have been added to the $7.6 million here that are not listed, but that the departments are very aware of the needs for some of these different things. And so we just thought we'd have them as a little secondary list in case there was any desire to elevate any one of them into the CIP plan. Otherwise, we thought we'd list them here, just that you're aware that if they don't happen in 18, they might happen in a future year.
And I guess on top of that, our plan is to bring forward the full five-year CIP next summer. So in the summer of 2018, we had planned on doing that this year, but with the change in the director, we just couldn't make that happen. So in the future, that's how we would hope to have the CIPs reviewed by the city council before the budget would come out. Alderman Taylor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hope the chief wasn't waiting for that door to fall off. That's a terrible safety issue, and if it is, we shouldn't be waiting that long. On the stormwater, how we tax people on the stormwater to run off on your property or whatever, I would like to see that be adjusted to the square footage people have. And, if you have a small home or a large home and a couple acres, that how we tax that. It's been a big discussion up here for many times.
That is something that we can look for in, moving forward. It's, we are going to eventually have to adjust that rate at some point, and as we adjust that rate, we can definitely look at it. However, the vast majority of communities do use the ERU limit, which is the easiest and most, it's by far the easiest way to account for a stormwater credit. So that's why it is used, and it is widely used by just about every community in the area.
I hear, that our IT, we have better technology, we spend all this money for it, and maybe there's an opportunity with an intern or a grad student or something to come in and write this program on square footage. And I think it's fair to the property owner.
And again, it's something that we can look at, but I do not know of any other communities who do it that way. The ERU is a fairly standard way of doing it.
It's been kicked around up here for about the last 6 years, so, just like our building inspector, we finally have one. So, we kick it around, talk about it, and might pull the trigger on it. All right, thank you.
Yeah, I have a question on the CIP one, that 135,000, I'm just drawing a blank here for that cold storage facility. What it, Public Works?
That's a future item, but Josh, did you want to, or Adam?
I don't remember that.
That's not included in this budget.
No, but it probably was talked about.
Sure.
In addition to the upgrade or the new facility out there, we do intend or plan to have the need for a new or an additional cold storage building. So that was just something that we wanted to put in there as well. That's all.
My bad. Okay, thanks.
Alderman Sevenick.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm having a hard time. PPF HVAC upgrade.
Public Protection Facility HVAC upgrade, what we're looking at doing is our control system over there is still pneumatic, meaning we have an air compressor that generates air pressure, and that's what controls a lot of the valves opening and closing, hot water, air valves. We have put in some digital controls, computer controls, to operate the large components, the air the fans, the air handlers, the air compressor, and the boilers, but not to control the zones or the different rooms. So what we're looking at doing is upgrading them, making everything digital, electronic, being able to be controlled with our building automated system. There will be energy efficiency savings experienced by getting away from the old pneumatic system. And we're looking at trying to phase that in, fireside and then.
$30,000 savings?
How much?
$30,000 savings?
We'll do some math for you, but.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting that we're asking more questions about something that's not in the budget? But you put it in there, we had to figure out what it was, so thank you.
You got to press your button, Alex, if you want. Alderman Zelinski?
Thank you. I was not here for the Parks Department budget, but there was some discussion ensued about I did follow up and watch it, the construction of one bridge for the Peanut Island. I see this as, in our CIP, we have a great amount and we're increasing tax rate by quite a bit. I just see this as an item as low-lying fruit that doesn't seem to need to be done in this budget at this time. And I would just like to make the motion to remove the 89,000 from the Jefferson Park, well, Peanut Island construction of one bridge. I think it would be on page, what in the budget, under public.
It's under CIP, but we can.
CIP, oh, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, we can.
CIP is fine then.
We know what you're talking about, so is there a second?
I'll second.
So motion and a second. Just for information, this is part of our borrowing plan, so it won't change the tax rate. It would just reduce our borrowing.
Yep.
Any further discussion? Alderman Grady. Oops, I'm sorry. Oops.
I know this won't affect the tax rate or anything. Is this money, or, I know it's in the vision plan, so could this be set aside for something else instead of us just deep sixing it tonight?
Could be.
Okay, thanks.
I'm sorry I missed you before, Alderman Nichols.
That's okay. I guess I'm not sure what Alderman Gardy means about keeping it for something else.
I'm guessing what you would like to do is create a park project reserve in that amount and then have that dollar amount come back up for discussion later in the year. Is that what, I don't know if I can do this. It will not let me. If you want to turn your light back on. There we go.
I guess, Alderman Nichols, I'm just thinking that I don't know if I want to completely remove something that's on a vision plan type, not tax-based, or it's not going to affect the individuals yet, and just have it maybe as some other type fund that we might need down the road, not identifying anything. It might not even be in Park and Rec. It's just the dollars. They're already set aside or already in a vision idea. Don't just completely blow that away and say, and then someone comes back and says, hey, I wish we could add this or do something. Well, we didn't have that 89,000 anymore to do it. If that's possible, that's just my thought process.
Alderman Severnick?
Hopefully I can clarify something. I mean, even though you're taking it out, it may not affect the levy, it still affects how much we borrow. And in that process, obviously, it's how much we pay in interest on that borrowing. So by taking it out, there is a savings. But I guess it's also a statement from this body saying that isn't part of what we believe in. I mean, I don't think we need the second bridge myself either. If you want to keep it in there for something else, I think we got to be more direct. So I would say that probably the best thing right now is to remove it, and then we borrow all the time. We're borrowing up here all the time so I mean, it could come up again. if we decide there's something else that needs to be added, or maybe there's something new that Parks looks at that it's part of that park plan or something, but there is still a savings when you take this out.
I just wanted to clarify that if this project came in under budget or if we didn't do it, we wouldn't borrow for it. We typically are borrowing about this time of the year. So we wait and use our cash flow funds to do our projects, and then at the end of the year, we would borrow for whatever actually happened. So if we left it in the budget, it wouldn't affect our borrowing because we wouldn't have done it.
Right, that's why I'm saying this is more of a statement that,
Yes.
okay.
But there wouldn't be any savings in interest or anything like that.
Well, if we're gonna borrow $1 million and then now it's only gonna be, 900,000, yeah, there's gonna be $100,000 that we don't borrow that we're not paying interest
Yeah,
on.
I think we're both kind of saying the same thing.
I know we are.
Alderman Collier?
I understand we'll just use the number $80,000, and I honestly believe we should leave it in the budget, not necessarily for Peanut Bridge, or the Island Bridge, whatever, but I thought at an earlier time, we talked about using that money. If we didn't use it there, we'd put it toward other things in the city that's needed. At this time, if you don't want to spend it on the bridge, I'd gladly spend it on another street in Menasha. I got about 6 I can pick in anybody's district that 89,000 would cover probably. So I just soon keep it in. We had a good year. We're going to have a decent year next year. I'm progressive. I want to get streets done. The parks too, but the parks, that's a little different animal. You got to fix your street downtown, get tax revenue in town. So I hope we leave it in and use it accordingly down the road. Thank you.
Alderman Nichols?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm a bit conflicted about borrowing $89,000 or potentially borrowing $89,000, but not having that earmarked for something. And I understand what Alderman Grady is saying about the potential of abandoning a vision plan at this point, or parts of that vision plan. And so my question is for Director Tungate. Was this bridge part of the vision plan that was created with input from the community?
Yes, it was.
Thank you for that simple answer. And that's my point here, is that this vision plan was an effort by the community and an expression of what they wish to see in this park. It was adopted, the vision plan was adopted by the Common Council. And now it's time for us to decide to make that investment, not only in a park, but an investment in what our community members desire. And I'll leave my comments at that.
Yes, thank you. I understand that this was put into that vision plan, but I don't think the people that were at those workshops and who decided on this, that saw this bridge and saw that it was going to be potentially $89,000 or whatever is marked for it. And I don't see many people in this city that would say, yes, let's spend that money on a bridge for a little island that we just go across for no reason. There's already a bridge to it. I don't see the use of putting another bridge on it. I don't think it was specifically laid out to when this visioning plan was happening, that how much this would actually cost. And it's just a vision plan. It's not set in stone. That's what I heard a million times when this vision plan was going through. So this is where we're making our decisions to finally do something about the vision plan. Just because it's a vision doesn't mean it's going to get done. Thank you.
I'm gonna try to spend some money. If we're gonna keep the $89,000, we can do it, the top 4 projects, we can do 4 projects. Marina Place, Shoot Street parking, the HVAC upgrade, the Second Street parking, we could use that money to cover all that, or else we could spend it on floors for the fire stations and other things. Yes, it takes away from the project at the park, but I just as soon maintain the facilities that I have to have maintained than to build a little bridge right now. I could probably find ways to get a bridge built, but right now I'm looking at what's got to get straightened out and fixed in the city, so I'd just as soon, if you need a project, I got 5 or 6 you can pick from on the bottom of that page. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no, do you have a spot to vote or not? Seeing no further discussion, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Making sure that's, oh, excuse me, no, wait a second.
It's too late. They already started voting, we'll just have to.
Okay, yeah, it's the amendment, even though it says.
Yes. So this is your motion to remove the bridge on Peanut Island for $89,000. It's part of the CIP plan. It's a 3-3 vote.
It's a tie, Mayor.
So I'll leave it fail at this point. If someone wants to bring something back at the next meeting and say that they would like to replace this or do something different with that funding, I would say that would be a germane motion for the next meeting then. Or if they want to undesignate the bridge, you could do that as well. Any other thoughts on the CIP? Alderman Zelinski?
Yeah,
Okay. Then we have, if there's any adjustments that you would like to discuss tonight, we could do that. You could also get them to Director Jacobs if you have any questions about those things. Alderman Zelinski?
Thank you. I had some questions about, ever since that newspaper article came out, about what we're trying to do as far as the budget goes. For this Main Street project, there's a bunch of things flying around. I've been asked if that really needs to be a fully redone. Does it, new construction, can this just be resurfaced, or to cut down on this 700 some odd thousand that's going to be through this TIF and everything?
Unfortunately, due to the existing sidewalks and light poles and, pretty much all the sidewalks on there are completely not ADA compliant to current law. They work with the old roadway. As soon as you resurface or do any major improvement to that roadway, you have to upgrade everything to be ADA compliant. And as soon as you do
Even
that,
if it is
you're better
resurfaced,
off
okay.
doing a reconstruction.
Okay, that was my question.
John?
The 2 items that we will be listing on the agenda for next Monday for adjustments that we already know is that the $31,202 for the fire department equipment for the SCBA's. We will be putting that as an addition to the CIP budget. So we'll have that listed on there so you can vote on that separately. Don't have to do that tonight. And then also, we did receive a $700 donation for the Radon Grant program. So that's something that the designee had requested to have added on there to the health department's budget. So it's something, we'll list that one also. We do have a funding source for it. So therefore, we'll put it on the list of at least 2 adjustments that staff is already aware of. If you have others, you can just forward those, like the mayor had said, to myself or to Jennifer, so that we get them on the agenda as quick as possible for the clerk's office. But then, of course, you can always bring up any others, because that'll be pertinent to make any adjustments on the floor after we have the budget hearing on Monday night.
Alderman Zelinski.
Thank you. I don't know if this would be a question for Adam, Alex, or Jacobs, but, so I got Adam, Alex is kind enough to give me the numbers for the waste collection from last year, the tabulated numbers for the annual cost per household. And based off that, it was around $738 for the comparative cost. Well, that was comparative, and then for the total cost for residential solid waste collection divided by the amount of households, and so on and so forth, we looked at annual cost per household of around $136.82. What would that be with this current budget? Or would that be a hard number to tabulate because we don't know of?
I guess I'd have to look and see what we're planning as far as an increase. And there again, growth would also dictate what that would be per household. So in going through these numbers and calculating them, I think that it isn't going to move a whole lot, to be honest with you.
From prior year?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
So with that, I would like to make the amendment to make this the annual cost per household put onto the tax bill as a separate line item, that it's not based on your assessed rate.
I'm not even sure how we would, or if we could do that, and what that would do to our numbers for our levy limits and we could talk about that for the next meeting, but I don't think that's something you want to do on the fly. I guess we can ask, you made a motion, I could ask for a second. Okay, so there's a motion and a second. Director Jacobs?
I remember that the Department of Revenue gives you there are 5 items that if you create a special fee for, that they do penalize you with the shared revenue formula if you do create a fee from something you had on the tax roll. Right off the top of my head, I can't remember if the garbage is one of those 5. I know there are a couple of them. I believe that it is one of those that you would get penalized for. So it's something I would like to do a little research on it.
Could you get back to me on that?
Yes, I could.
Well, and it's also, what would it do to the average homeowner? I mean, there's a lot of variables here too.
There'd be a big shift.
Mm-hmm.
So that some of them you're going to have a number of residents that are going to be gainers
Mm-hmm.
in this, and there are going to be some that are going to be losers in this.
Of course.
So we can do a little analysis on it, and I don't know if it's something we'd want to bring to the meeting on the 20th, or if it's something for the 4th, or
see what the council says right now, if we want to move forward on that, I guess. Alderman Taylor?
It's always good to take a different look at a different model, and there's no harm in taking a look at a different idea. So I'm always in favor of new ideas, and let's take a look. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Alderman Sevenek?
Thank you. I like the concept. I mentioned it before. Again, I'm going on this rant about neighboring communities that don't have this on their tax bill. So therefore, it makes our particular levy look higher, and that our taxes are higher than theirs when they're doing fees. But I think this is too late in the game to do this at this point. And I agree that these formulas could actually cost us. I just thought it was a great idea to look at for our next year's budget. I didn't think we really wanted to do that this year. So unless you withdraw your motion, I'm going to vote against this. But for the reasons I stated, not that I'm opposed to this idea, I just think that with having our new employees and not having the time to do all this at this point, we're not ready to do that yet, and it'd probably be best for next year.
Alderman Zelinski?
I'll rescind my motion, seeing he'll give get some information to me on this subject, if you're fine with that, Alderman Taylor.
We've allowed that in the past, and until we change the council rules, I think that's fine. Okay. Anything else? Otherwise, we'll move on to the health insurance for retirees.
So this isn't the same, Deb. I gave the mayor one.
Do you want?
Dan needs you.
Oh, do we need to take a break? Okay, we need to take a 5-minute recess.
We've got 10 minutes left on the tape.
10 minute, we have 10 minutes. Can we finish in 10 minutes?
No,
Okay.
let's take